In another dimension, two people were seen together, as if they were lovers, and then, the girl who was holding a red book said something that, in this world, there are two types of human nature. The first is people who think they are special people. But in reality, they are just ordinary people, and second someone who is actually special. Then, on the other hand, there was a man sleeping in his room. He was a man named Siwoo. While asleep, he was saying something while he was holding his cell phone. It's only a matter of time before he becomes a player, but he thinks he has to wait for it. And then, from outside the door of his room, a sound came from a door. It seemed that it was his mother trying to wake him up. His mother said that he had to get up from his bed and help his mother to take out the trash. But when his mother was ordering him, Siwoo denied and said, "Not now," because he was doing something very important. However, suddenly her mother came into his room with an angry expression holding a frying pan. His mother said, "You are someone who has no life. You are already 26 years old, but you are an unemployed person, and you have nothing to do, not even for doing something very important." Then his mother said that she wanted Siwoo to do something for her. And then Siwoo immediately took the trash and took it outside to throw it in the trash. He said, "It was very scary earlier, but she is my mother." Then Siwoo was holding his cell phone. Then he saw news. Then that there is a palace in the sky, and everyone is trying to get in there. But no one has been able to. Even they used missiles. And in the end, they still can't find a way to get into the sky palace. And then on the other hand, an irritated Siwoo said, "Why doesn't he have anything special? It's been 10 years since people have started getting wings." Then, Sky Castle. It was the name of another world in the sky, when it shook the entire planet, despite all efforts, except technology. Humans couldn't touch it, no matter how many times they tried to utilize everything, even modern equipment, including missiles and newest weapons. They couldn't fly inside there. And apparently, it was real, and not illusory, the scientists surmised. It was something extraterrestrial chosen from the Sky Castle, known as a player, started appearing from that point. Then it was seen that the Sky Angel could fly. It crossed the sky and looked very attractive. And then they can determine who can enter the Sky Castle. And then, players have investigated the dungeons of the castle. There are lots of monster traps from underground, and also there have a lot of treasures. And for players, they can last a lifetime. And because of that, there are many unknowns there then. Beings try to occupy the floors and dungeons of the Sky Castle. And the player's power is received by the Angel, someone who was also accepted by the Angel in the past. But it's confusing because it's been 10 years, and the wings haven't grown. On the other hand, players who had been approved by the Angels usually had a pair of wings. And in order to enter that place, in rage he took an empty can of water and kicked it fiercely towards the world and into the sky. That kick was amazing, but after that, disappeared instantly. And then, Siwoo has been a very strong person since birth. For him, strength comes from birth, and certainly not through training. As a child, he was born with this power, but he couldn't use it, so his parents enrolled him in a martial arts dojo to try to control this power. But after that, due to some things, it lasted no more than a year. Previously, the class refused to accept Siwoo. Yes, because he has strength far beyond that of his teacher, so there is no reason for him to continue studying. Because of this unique power, he believes that the appearance of the castle is his destiny, but he is confused. Why can't he be a player? Maybe Siwoo's extraordinary talent for now is like a privilege, but without proper use, it can even hurt him. Despite the fact, he is not a different player from the ordinary one. He is unique because of the great pressure. Siwoo went far and underground. Then, after rescuing the girl, but it's time for the two to fight to get back, an optical system voice informs them that they have advanced to the player challenge, and that they are required to kill the monster and clear it here. And after that, when the girl who had been saved by Siwoo found out that he was just an ordinary guy, she was shocked. With such power, it seemed impossible. She explained to Siwoo that the player will have a certain amount of mana, which is the player's foundation and power capacity. However, when she realized it was Siwoo, he had no mana. She recognized that he had power without mana. He was an average player, and even if he didn't have wings behind his back, and he still had superhuman strength, thus he qualified to become a player who could go underground. But one thing she was sure of was that the players in the sky were not the same as the ones here. And maybe not. Someone had become a player in this place, There were at least 5 monsters waiting for them in the entrance dungeon, and young Siwoo stated that he didn't think they would be simple opponents to face. There was only one entry according to Siwoo Rin, and going in without a plan would be very risky, Siwoo Rin thought. That young Siwoo seemed to be inexperienced. But maybe this dungeon is even stronger, in the sky. Even the best players can't possibly clear this dungeon, she wonders. Can she believe Jung Siwoo's strength? But she is Jung Siwoo's supporter. So she needs to help him clear the dungeon, while also increasing her own strength. Siwoo Rin asked him to go with her to the dungeon. He was surprised when he entered for the first time. However, he had no fear. He guessed that the purpose of the dungeon in this land is to test the player's strength and testability. So he advised him not to be subjective, even if it's a guide. Because the monsters here might be really strong, she started to instruct young Siwoo. If it's a melee monster, he can fight from a distance. But if it's a fighting monster, from afar he had to find it, means to deal with it. Because monsters in dungeons were so dangerous that they didn't care, and how sure he had a sense of himself to be careful. Because he has no way of knowing the exact size of the dungeon, and because it also requires him to remain careful and to prevent getting hurt, asked young Siwoo Siwoo Rin. Again, if all he needs to do is defeat them. And after getting it, affirmation, he ran inside without hearing. He said, "What's more?" But what greeted the two was a wolf, over level 50, which scared Siwoo Rin. She kept urging him to leave. But she didn't expect that the wolf would be defeated so quickly. Siwoo Rin was shocked and astonished, and she then told him about what he got after entering the dungeon. Siwoo Rin's destiny will now be tied to young Siwoo, who should be considered good luck. She starts by telling young Siwoo about more details, including the fact that clearing the dungeon doesn't give them immediately strength first, but rather stabilize and level them up together. And then, as a result, he has to prove his worth if he wants to get more power. Many gamers don't realize this. Usually when playing dungeons, and Sky Castle players often rate dungeons like RPS. Believing that dungeons are good, test important or not, they hope to get a reward every time they solve a sentence in the test. But these players will not last long in the sky and will die. Players will not fully understand dungeons if they believe that monsters are part of it. Siwoo Rin noted that money looting is the simplest option. And with a stable level of livelihood at the time, he punched a heavy punch known as plundering monsters. Money, like looting money, does not carry crystals, so they need to hit them to melt mana and then absorb it. In the dungeon, however, most of these monsters' crystal bearings are fixed. So it takes a heavy hit to fatally injured. They acquire crystals. It is impossible to collect loot in the dungeon unless he is with calmly dividing it. Mana's physical strength, young Siwoo thought, is quite interesting, and that if he wants to clear all dungeons, he must not waste his strength in the loot, but rather fast. Collect all the items and clean them immediately. He has an idea. He does it. Young Siwoo gathers all the monsters nearby and hits them with that one hit, making them waste crystals. And then, Siwoo Rin, who saw that, felt shocked, because seeing Jung Siwoo using this method that she didn't expect to be able to use both quickly, arrived at the monster, the boss area, and Siwoo Rin told him. The dungeon boss was close, relations with other monsters in the dungeon. This time the dungeon had a large number of werewolves, and of course the boss was a wolf too. Siwoo Rin found it quite funny because even though she passed Werewolf Head, most people had already reached level 100. Although Jung Siwoo claimed he could still handle the man, because he was nobody, and he had no choice but to leave. Despite his restless mind, he didn't expect Siwoo Rin to be able to see his thoughts clearly. Even when tested dungeons, the boss was very scary. Even though the player didn't die, the experience of facing the previous boss would leave some psychological trauma. And meanwhile, there were those who weren't promoted, and those who remained in reserve for a long time. Siwoo Rin didn't think that was acceptable. She had to help him through the dungeon, because if they failed the dungeon test in heaven, they had to return to normal. They lived on. If Jung Siwoo failed this test, he wasn't sure what would happen further. Even if he escaped from the dungeon, what would happen to him? And after that, she was no longer a guardian. Until now, her heart was even more nervous, because everything was so smooth. Most likely because death was only a few hours away. Maybe since meeting Jung Siwoo, everything up until now has been a dream, not memories. But Siwoo Rin, having no choice but to open the dungeon door to Jung Siwoo's mind. She will be useless, since Jung Siwoo managed to kill a very large werewolf. Despite some difficulties in just a few short minutes, the notice board showing Jung Siwoo had completed the dungeon appeared it was the basic ability given to the player. Called the interface, it was important to confirm the records of everything related to the Sky Castle, with the inspection of the dungeon that young Siwoo had officially became a player. Suwoo Rin thought that even though this was not a Sky Castle, there was nothing strange dungeon from the time he fell until he cleared it. The reward for the persistent player's endurance. The first skill was mana, which he acquired. While hunting the strongest monsters or clearing dungeon rounds, Suwoo Rin explained to him that if he had a certain action or unlocked an emotion that would never be possible, before he might use a dungeon attack, he asked, would any of the skills he would acquire be including persistent resilience? Because this was the first skill she had heard of, Suwoo Rin's eyes sparkling at this point thought that maybe it was a special skill, adding that in this case, the situation special skill is very important. Maybe it is a talent that only owned by Jeong Siwoo. After both of them felt the power, a wave of power flowed through them. Suwoo Rin's body pondered. Was this the reward for successfully clearing the dungeon? Jeong Siwoo endured the discomfort and wondered. Is this a process of putting strength into the body to strengthen it? Different with when he received the mana seed skill? It was instilled into every cell, allowing the capacity cell to develop the seed within and eliminate the accumulated bacteria. And then, during the lack of mana when the process was completed, Jeong Siwoo saw he had grown, another story, and Suwoo Rin became small according to his role as a supporter. Suwoo Rin instructed him to place the crystals collected in the sacrifice to get the reward. The first thing that appears is usually a bandage, gauze, or medication. But if the number of crystals added is double digits or higher, it is possible to receive equipment. Of course, the more crystals he adds, the higher the quality of the item received. And it is possible to receive very powerful items or special magic, though. This possibility is very low. There wouldn't be such a rare item. In this round of instructions, when Jeong Siwoo heard this, he immediately started thinking about important items, which could aid recovery like medicine or bandages. But Suwoo Rin has the power to heal, he asks. Is that a crystal loading one-time unlimited? Suwoo Rin states that so far it is unlimited. He knows as soon as she finishes saying it, he puts it all in. Suwoo Rin screams, what he did. So when he was young, he experienced all from the moment he couldn't access the Sky Castle. So he didn't receive real items. But there were crystals that could help him get those things. Except he ended up putting them in a loop, he stated. That because Suwoo Rin already has the healing function, he is no longer needed. That Suwoo Rin can only pray God that it is the armor that will help protect the important parts. Jeong Siwoo questions her about why she is worried. No, there is something to worry about time. Next he can go to another dungeon and buy some armor to wear. Suwoo Rin ran out of things to say. If it were he wouldn't be scared, he told him, that the modern items brought couldn't be used in settings. Jeong Siwoo is confused as to why this process needs to be so complicated. In the end, he gets a big hammer. Jeong Siwoo disappointed. Suwoo Rin, the instructor, is now really in action, showing him how to cover his wings and tail. Tailor's wings are a symbol of the player's character to hide them. They have to focus mana on a portion of their body. If it's mana, according to Jeong Siwoo, the player will feel strange. Power attacks his body, at this time rebirth, similar to electric shock. He focuses on thinking about his chest. What Suwoo Rin said, he advised him, that if he imagines himself as a fairy tale, with mana surrounding him, the story will happen. Completely vanishing was all Jeong Siwoo was able to do immediately. He was very curious about what would happen as if he got stronger. Later on, the second is the toolbox that will be given to new players. The equipment case is space. All players are given. Suwoo Rin, even considered dungeon players, will not be given space. But fortunately, he still accepts it. Players can put everything in the box, including phones and food. But the things they put in will be limited in size, and the quantity laughs loudly, saying that now it's the same as a game. He plays all the items made by the Sky Castle. Very helpful to players. He told him that he only needs to remember 2 things, which he told him so everywhere he's gone he won't stand out. And it's just player magic. Sensitive can investigate. He saw something beside the esplanade earlier used for sacrifice and thought, he can go inside. He states he is right. It is similar to the Sky Castle gate, and Jeong Siwoo Yum might be back to Earth through this gate. When the two returned to Earth, he took her to his home because Suwoo Rin had a life alone before arriving at the Sky Castle. And if she went home now, she wouldn't know what to do. She was reprimanded and punched repeatedly by her mother. Soon, after he entered the room, it was finally safe to pick up. Suwoo Rin took his pocket and entered the room. Suwoo Rin currently only needed half a bar of energy to feel full, most likely because her body has shrunk, causing her stomach to shrink as well. Jung Si-woo smiled, thinking that he didn't have to worry about money to buy food. Briefly, the term Suarin said that as a dungeon player, they should consider how they will do it, behave. He was told by Jung Si-woo that he looked very excited. All he said, he replied, that if he develops quickly, he will mature quickly, and only then will he be able to quickly recover it. The status quo he wants to know, does he want to be a player? Enters the dungeon and always prioritizes this. Happily, accepts Jung Si-woo naturally concentrates on the fact that if it's a dungeon is one that no one else knows, but he will soon grow stronger. Before entering door 1, he said to him that when players cleared the dungeon door, many aspects were lost, so mana can be managed, case of equipment or skills, and his only advantage is knowing how to fly. But even with that advantage, he might still be able to do it, winning even though he can't fly. He has the benefit of making easy movement power to get through the prison door and collect mana now. Even though he has no wings, Jung Si-woo still receives mana. But it was very important that he didn't, comparing the experimental dungeon with the Dungeon 1 entrance. Complete the dungeon. Test players are still required to take months to customize mana, select weapons to practice and develop mana. After that, after they finished talking about everything, he went to the toy store and bought her a small house. The following night, he learns once more about the information that his teammates had posted. He showed it, Suarin, and explained that everyone believed him to have died, and that a big funeral had been held for Suarin. He was already a very well-liked player in the world, because he was a rare healer. Suarin accepted the news and stated that it was the opinion of the Game Guild, and that it was simply his ability to improve his skills, a skill he questioned, whether clearing 10 prison doors would be his career achievement, and whether prison doors should be cleaned according to included characteristics, rather than by level. Suarin emphasized that the standard Sky Power classification is a clean level, not a level. Each prison door requires 2 conditions to open it. The first is the level, and the second is whether the previous door can be cleared. Can clear door 2, he cannot enter door 3, and if Dr. 4 is not cleared, he cannot enter door 5. Some people are afraid of the high-level dungeon door, therefore they go around the low-level dungeon door. He is not sure if there has been a level increase, but the group is not accepted and the skills have not been developed. As if he has no room, the number he states that if someone died at the prison door, that person would also die in reality. So it's logical that people were frightened until now. Jung Si-woo believes that the barriers to his path have been broken, gently over and over again, but that's just because they were always smaller than him. So if there is a wall that is hard and strong, Jung Si-woo doesn't know what to do. Will he give up like a player? Suarin is said to be, or will fail like the end, Suarin. After an amazing match, he realizes it. He shuts up and asks if he's really that good. He has to admit that he felt a bit depressed after watching the clip about him, but he explained that ever since those annoying people begging for money, it would be better if he didn't have any. He had to start over during that period. Jung Si-woo was diligently practicing wielding weapons and controlling mana. Then Kim Har-young told the two that Suarin's name was not on Sky Castle's passport, and he would ask the council's resources to reveal this. After the player entered the Sky Castle, their names were immediately engraved on the stone steel. When they died, Jung Si-woo questioned whether this would cause the two of them trouble. In an instant, the eyes of the two had been training together. For 2 days, Suarin concluded that he will be reborn as an experimental dungeon player and receive 2 skills, one of which is a symbol for players in the dungeon, known as the Story of Chaos skill, and the other is to dispel his mind. Skills praise bravery. Idiot Suarin also acquired 2 such skills. First is the Advent healing ability. It will consume a lot of mana when all strength is strengthened, and the other, talent, is stealth that allows him. It is enough to become invisible when silent is seen by him. Unlike Advent stealth steal, what is more effective is that the skill can be defended in stealth. Conditions of more than 3 hours. He was sick of practicing quietly at home. So it's time to explore the new dungeon. Jung Si-woo takes out his motorcycle, but Suarin asks why the delivery car is here. He is surprised to learn that the motorbike costs no small amount of money. He comes up with a plan to disguise it, if it was a delivery vehicle that would go unnoticed wherever he went, and he would not be recognized by anyone, allowing him to fly over. The entire country unnoticed was sworn in a soft sweat. It was his first time riding a motorcycle, but it was a vehicle delivery. Right now, both they haven't found a way to find out. He could open the dungeon door, normally, but since then, the first door has been left out. He doesn't need to open the difficulty order dungeon door. Going up the dungeon door will be explained based on his game knowledge. He assumes that this prison door is clear of a dungeon and only needs the right swipe to open. Soo-ah-rin stands by his side and hopes it won't be a difficult door. He sees the limit of the dungeon maybe, so the players who enter the door don't receive outside help. He encourages him to hurry up because he's not sure how long the barrier will last, but Young-si hits so much, it's not yet Woo unmoved, so he tried to use his tail, which of course served as a lock. Then the two of them immediately fell down as she descended into the experimental dungeon when the two arrived at the ant nest area. Apparently there were legions of centipedes waiting for them, questioning. Did each dungeon door have a time limit for clearing the door? But Soo-ah-rin didn't know, because her sky castle of knowledge wasn't like this. If she didn't return, the dungeon time would collapse. But Ren's cave assured her that she wouldn't die and advised her to take precautions to prevent bad things from happening to her, also urging her to move quickly. As time was running out, she stated that they needed to investigate soon. As the other prison doors have the same basic setup, he claims that if it is a centipede, it must be dangerous, but even if it isn't, he won't be able to escape. But Young-si-woo doesn't mind that it is a centipede. After all, except for Soo-ah-rin asking, is it possible to meet a centipede that is 10 meters long with 1 meter at each joint? Young-si-woo answered in earnest, but it was just a giant centipede. Suddenly, the two saw a man inside who claimed to have retired, but did not know why he was here. Young-si-woo wanted to attack the person first, but the man was afraid. If he hit him, he would really die. Even if he died, already dead, a proper death is better. The man made it clear that he is not an enemy. When he opened his eyes, he was already in the dungeon. He kept waiting for someone to come and take revenge. Someone who could complete the quest for the dungeon, the soul in the centipede cave, and destroy the door to save the soul. According to Soo-ah-rin, the mission that offered prizes so players can enlist the help of other players. There are many different types of rewards, including potion gems, and sometimes even real-world privileges. Then, Soo-ah-rin realized that there is also mana and a reward for this mission. It must be in it. This soul direction has no home or pagoda livable. So like this, Young-si-woo questioned. Should he do it? Complete the mission in order the man could be saved? But the man didn't know he just wanted to witness the cat centipede. The expression he did asked Soo-ah-rin how he felt about the mission. Soo-ah-rin replied that because they needed to clear the prison doors, he decided to accept the task. However, he was still worried about the problem of killing the overkill monsters to fulfill the mission. He asked, was it okay for Chase to just and kill? So why was he worried about it, to be precise? He had to deal more damage of the opponent's physique. And the power to kill them, the attack, is the appearance of crystal monsters is high. But it is still too complicated, not only to destroy the enemy, but also to reduce the enemy's physical strength, and then release a powerful squad to finish off the enemy by concentrating on absorption, doubling. Soo-ah-rin's many powers reminded him of that. Maybe if they fail the mission, they will be punished. But even refusing the assignment will be punished, so Young-si-woo has to accept this assignment alone, finally. After some thoughts, both of them decide to carry out the task, while helping others. The centipede enters the cave. He is like wise and fast, and they all spit. Poison is a monster that can see the enemy's weak point, and kill them. Soo-ah-rin believes there must be an armor who noticed it. He begs him not to ignore it. Young-si-woo only served for a while. When he saw that the overkill in the centipede cave had reached a considerable number, he felt strange. Strange because of the army-level centipedes, only slightly above 80 can still overkill. So effective. Even knowing where the centipede attacked didn't cause the centipede to be startled. It was only with a light hitting that the centipede died, and did not even remotely guess when an exaggeration would be reached if he understood the center of strength as well as its effect. Then, not using all the strength, he could swing the hammer easily. Increase the power of weapons. Don't know how standard the difficulty is of this dungeon is, but if that were to happen, determined by the ability and level of the difficulty centipede, the average would be ideal for Young-si-woo. It was hard to say whether it was his sixth sense or natural fighting spirit, because he kills centipedes easily. The problem here is that it's impossible to test mana. Therefore, Soo-ah-rin believes there's no point. He's worried about finishing this job early. He admits that he's not used to cleaning when he first arrived. But it is easier. Once he was prepared, if anything went wrong, it wasn't him. The mistake was the dungeon's fault. This was another man standing by his side. now questioning what would happen if the commotion was a little louder, attracting more centipedes, not substance, but quantity. The size of the centipede would be enough for him to test mana, Siwoo Jeong claimed. It was dangerous, but Young Siwoo didn't think so. So he found it interesting and immediately agreed afterwards that he recruited a swarm of centipedes to attack them, then killed them with a single strike. While the other two gasp in fear at the sheer quantity of centipedes, Young Siwoo tugs excitedly, takes out a hammer and hilariously starts doing it, destroying them one by one, just like in a game, smashing rats. Siwoo Jeong warns him to be careful so as not to get bitten now. After he was with them, he repeatedly knocked down the wall, dealt with centipedes a few times, and piled them up. Soon tens of centipedes blocked the man's path, just stood outside watching in astonishment, thinking he wasn't human. How could he not be able to feel mana like he once believed, Siwoo Jeong, that mana was the standard of strength, because he was born with great strength. He had never done his best physically activities since childhood. Actually, it was impossible to exercise all of his strength. If he uses his own powers randomly, one might die. He has been brought up in a certain way which taught him that patience must come before strength as a result. While he was trained, he didn't use his powers. But it wasn't enough. He wanted to show his full strength. Now was the time to act, which he could make use of his best efforts. No one could stop him. And he felt happy that he didn't bother. Whoever the 3 centipedes were was much bigger than the others. Appeared, and he laughed so hard. Originally, that part could only be used by one person at one time. But he broke through the surrounding wall. But Young Siwoo quickly beat him. When he was comfortable fighting, he suddenly exceeded the task 3 times. Siwoo Jeong stated that completing the level of the mission will definitely have something bigger. But for the time being, he couldn't believe it. The player did. Assigned the job he wanted to do for him, revealed his true self first, then gently offered a gift. Seeing that the 2 of them were hoping for a reward, another person stood up and declared he would offer it to the 2. That person definitely had no intention. But when he saw the entire centipede crushed, perhaps his hatred had lessened by a lot. And after he had regained his conscience, Young Siwoo also wanted to overkill the boss and boldly said that he was brilliant. He believed that this place was ideal for him because in his memory, the commotion resembled physical training. On the other hand, getting he struggled, the hotter his body became. Until recently, his muscles had not stretched to their maximum potential, so they must have also enjoyed an existence, being tortured by their master. As his strength increased gradually, Siwoo Jeong wondered, did he actually kill the boss excessively? But the problem is how much ability Young Siwoo was working on. He stated that this dungeon was built by the ancestral system, based on his memories. After he died, he felt danger. Then, when the killer spat poison from his mouth, and that killer also spewed poison at the end of his tail, like a laser, until now. Young Siwoo had not had time to pay attention to poison because the handling was too strong. Of the centipede, he had never been poisoned once. But if it was poison and there was no information, he could still go to the boss room, even if he didn't die. He would be in trouble. He kept saying there would be a special move before attacking, the guy reasoned. That if it was, he could understand in dealing with it. However, he also needed her to be careful about changing her memories aside. It was a risky idea. But Sky Castle and Dungeon have a lot in common, and the games there have a lot of participants, although it takes a high dose of. Siwoo Jeong heard it, and replied that the players accept the game in Sky Castle, in Dungeon, land, and if they feel indifferent to their own lives, they would die quickly. He states that it's important to enjoy the game, but that enjoyment and humiliation are not the same thing to start having. As a result, the inner region would definitely be filled with poison, making it impossible to do so, continue working. If so, only option is to act right. Leave him, still snapping his tail but smashing his head into overkill is a bit difficult. He also can't increase 1 hit with mana. After some thought, he finally came up with a solution, declaring himself a genius and chuckling. The monster moves slowly because it's big, just as predicted. Siwoo Jeong stares in awe at Young Siwoo, who has thrown 1 punch from a distance, and a punch was hit with bare hands, and he himself had been spiked. With his last action, the timing of the power was slightly off. It barely smashed it. The notification system exceeded the task level 5 times, and the centipede, the burrow army ant nest area, was cleared. Siwoo Jeong was relieved because didn't think he had succeeded in killing the boss excessively. Ever since the first time he received mana, he had seen a change in him. Then, his body no longer felt uncomfortable. This time, according to Suwoo Rin, it only increased what he already had. Therefore, it was not as painful as before. Young Siwoo estimated that strength, stamina, and agility grew by about 2 times, and magic power increased 1 time, but he has not felt it yet. Suwoo Rin's strength quotient states that it is difficult to confirm the progress of his skills with 2 eyes. After a long pause, Phantom states that he wants to reward him. Once the task is done, he hands him his record crystal, which means his skill. It is also the last, the item he left behind when he died. Jeong Si-woo was curious about his skill. While he was amazed at what the ghost had just finished, he initially thought. The ghost was given the ability while still alive, but apparently this person tried to offer himself to him. Young Si-woo was scared and didn't happy. When he found out the truth, he tried to stop it with a hammer, but it didn't work because he felt that he didn't have the power to do it. Soul Collect It was also the first time. He heard that Suwoo Rin claimed the ghost sacrificed his whole soul because he was blown away by the power. But if it should have told them about it. Young Si-woo asked, "What was the reward for this mission?" There was a tattoo on the arm, Suwoo Rin stated, that he was satisfied, regardless, and he even believed that no hit would end. Of course, not every dungeon is the same, but it can concluded that if it was medium difficulty, the capacity to pass through it would not be much different. This seems to be the conclusion of the first dungeon battle. So Young Si-woo chose to throw the crystal into the esplanade, used for sacrifice in exchange for gifts. He asked, "Why is that red sacrifice?" Suddenly appeared next to the previous one did not want to explain it. It is one of the cells that only appears when the dungeon is cleared. With extraordinary performance at a certain level, he can strengthen it. The artifact, if he combines it with the crystal monster, and the artifact he has the direction of improvement, will be determined by the quality, quantity, and the orientation of the crystal monster. Young Si-woo, yes, put his weapon into it. Just as he had predicted this time, he was given a pair of gloves and was able to successfully strengthen the weapon. Put on his gloves, believing that no one would notice. If he wore it outside, Young Si-woo took out the reward key received in previous dungeon battles. And then, when the key is extracted, the players will be able to return to their house, to get to their house. Young Si-woo and Suwoo Rin hastily fall into a significant hole. Therein slept since then. Despite all that, he was tired of taking punches. 1 in a row that his heart yearned for, increasing the function of this room, but he lacked crystals, so Young Si-woo decided to put everything aside and rest. Suwoo Rin first started cultivating after he fell asleep. He had to participate in mana cultivation. As good as he was grateful, he was still alive. This form since after almost lost all abilities, and turned into that guide, now required to increase all their stats of the highest level. Whether they were skill level or mana, Young Si-woo could easily deal with everything around him, which he hoped to recover his various skills as a healer because unexpected situations would still occur. He had no time to rest. Even if he wanted to just by breath, he could feel being Suwoo Rin, who was stronger training skills and mana. As Young Si-woo sleeps, he awakens to see Suwoo Rin exhausted and sleeping beside the piggy bank. He is more worried and stressed dungeon than him. They go to the next dungeon, after which wait for him to wake up. The two learn the truth about the so-called prison gate, that if one person dies, the group structure will weaken, resulting in other members dying more quickly, and those who die in the same dungeon gate continuously falling the other way, represented by the door of the prison of life. Someone, too, then goes hunting. In some dungeon, and he tiredly returned to the home system. Young Si-woo wanted to verify the country first, and he claimed it would be better if he could increase his strength. With his anti-poison skill, Suwoo Rin realized that there were players who were attacked to develop them, stamina, but he states that it takes a long time to become poison resistant, so he should try it a bit. If not for ability, Suwoo Rin in detoxing won't do it, even though he did only reach level 4. His anti-poison skill is pretty good, and even when hit by poison beam as poison boss, he can still move by level 5, even if the monster centipede poisons him. That alone affects him a bit if he wants it. Proficient, he can do more. But with that point, there will be no more centipede nests next. Acceleration and ammo are not skills developed or acquired from dungeon. They were the rewards she received from the spirit she met at the dungeon entrance. She was currently less familiar with the tasks or the awards' various contents. Suwoo Rin stated that since he couldn't inherit their feelings completely, it took quite a bit for their resume to convey to him completely. But it is certain that these are good skills, because they are not as easy to obtain as their name suggests. Acceleration is the ability to accelerate by using mana, in battle, if he uses another. The fighting technique when using this technique will significantly increase strength. But for adding to the power of acceleration, for battle techniques it was necessary to have techniques to control mana transformation. However, he was still having trouble using them now. After the conversation, Siwoo wanted to go to rest. Because he spent a lot of crystals upgrading his house, Siwoo's mother needed his help, and called to ask where he was. Because his friend was in trouble. He would give him the address there so he could come and help. However, his mother was worried if he could face the monster. Because of that, who could, or the participants in the game claimed, it was difficult to arrive soon. Because they were in the Sky Palace, he asked Suwoo Rin to accompany him. After hearing the monster's call, it has arrived in the real world. Suwoo Rin drives away at full speed on Shuya's motorbike, riding past the red light seeing Suwoo concern. He shouts that it's all right, because he has to keep taking off his number plate the closer he comes to Sanha Ward. Less traffic there is the environment. Must have been evacuated. Suwoo Rin questions if it's really a monster. Since he reasons since then, a monster in the Sky Castle can never escape from the prison door. It's probably the one in the ant nest. In 10 years since the formation of the Sky Castle, monsters have appeared on the surface of the earth. Although he wanted to refute it, it was just an exaggeration. He also believed that it was an anthill monster, and if it was just a monster that appeared, it had nothing to do with him. But as soon as the two established, it was a dungeon. In San Hayward, the monster appeared there. It couldn't be, as it was an unfortunate accident. And meanwhile, it was unclear whether the truth was because of him or not. It was proven the anthill, dungeon, and monsters were related. Suwoo Rin asked about player records, that he doesn't need to be like that. Then, hurry up today. Sky Castle held an auction, and majority of players gathered there. However, the electrical equipment didn't work and they couldn't do it. Suwoo Rin's communication felt weird, not too much of a coincidence, as soon as they came. They saw goblins attack everyone, and that 2 monsters that attack humans most viciously arrived. He pulled monsters out to kill. Crucial problem is, if he is lured in, all monsters come out to kill, the result will be enemies. Won't be bad. Suwoo Rin questioned him about who he was doing, when monsters will come. But it's all part of Jing. His plan and everything went smoothly, exactly as the goblins had planned. Suddenly shooting thorns at him, Suwoo Rin tells him yes, out of fear, the blue liquid is poison, and if a lot of goblins appear, and these spots cannot be defended with defensive equipment, there will be a significant risk of being attacked by poison. If that is the case, he will need another strategy. After all, if it stops the poison, he needn't worry about it. Suwoo Rin was urged by Siwoo not to do it. Just try and help him, who the goblins told each other that he has a lot of mana, and that they should kill him. Siwoo gripped the nails they had released from dissatisfaction in his hands. But it wasn't enough. He shouted at them, since they were strange monsters who were always hiding and dealing with weaklings. As a result, he had to miss their turn to go to Oak. His statement angered the monsters who claimed they were stronger, and could even beat Siwoo, secretly smiling when he managed to provoke them, and he only had to force the rest to crawl onto the ground one by one. Siwoo cleared the monsters in a few seconds, and this area seems clear too. To him, what to do now? The stone's attack was exhausted. He immediately heard a very loud roar, which he assumed was from earlier. The goblin was clear that it was getting harder, because it was the strongest goblin since the 2 of them had killed monsters. No, it was not a problem with strong monsters. That or anything but Siwoo. He received a notification from the system that the dungeon was about to explode, and boss monsters will fall to the ground. If he doesn't manage to kill the monster before the time is up, the big goblin starts saying that he is a very strong man who uses stones to kill other warriors, goblins. But he shouldn't think he can kill the boss that way. Siwoo states that it must be impossible to kill with a stone, meaning throwing the stone questions him about whether he is a player. But he just tells him to try it with his body. Siwoo manages to knock it down with one strike of his hammer, despite the lack of magic, while also exaggerating the prison door and defeating the superior monster of the centipede dungeon. Suwoo Rin believed it. It would be strange if he couldn't kill a monster once. The giant beasts were all killed, the other monster troops disappeared, and the system reappeared, reveals that the monsters have been locked back in the dungeon. However, if he and Suwoo Rin cannot find and clear the dungeon within the time limit, the monsters will be released again. The dungeon has already been activated and the remaining time is 4 hours. Thought this level was perfect. He really felt as if he was playing a game with someone else's life. rather than his own. He thought it was interesting and rewarding to play, but Suarin was busy thinking that a real monster would do it. Arrived at the ground, but he found out there was no information from Sun Castle, as New Sky Castle and Dungeon appeared. Everyone was worried about the appearance of monsters on Earth. Yet despite urging players to raid dungeons, such thoughts had gotten clouded over the last 10 years. Suarin didn't know why it had appeared now. Whether it was because of his presence or for some other reason. The two of them quickly went to look for the dungeon as time was running out. They then found a location where everyone there had died. It must be a monster pouring out of there. Monsters abounded, so it wasn't surprising when everyone died quickly, started work. Whether it was the police or the military when they found the trail they were going to make here. The entrance was in the same condition as the experimental dungeon, L, and the centipede cave. As soon as he walked through the prison door, he wondered if the goblins, including the boss monsters, were staring at them. Suarin had just shown him an inner spirit staring at them, and young Siwoo decided now was the time to question what they didn't know. However, the spirit comes with an angry look questioning if they are players, and then immediately realizes and screams that they were players who abandoned him. However, he claims that the soul seems to be in a faction with the goblins, implying that this is a new type of door. The person keeps screaming that he must die because of them, that he is the superior to everyone. And why did he have to die? Why did he die? He had to survive. Young Siwoo continued by saying that there are many players who are conscious, natural nationalists. There are also individuals who think they stand out above the rest. He believes that there is no clear difference between him and that soul, that he is unique, and that other people have special abilities. While the soul saw itself as extraordinary and hated everyone else, that it started screaming at the bastards who left it for their own safety. It hated players and the soul in a panic, consuming them goblins around it, even though the system had told it that if the soul it kept eating it would get stronger. He stayed and watched, since it was a bit simpler to fight one person from their group. The spirit was helping him pick up trash after all. Young Siwoo watches from the side as the soul is consumed by goblins without moving. The soul actually eats a lot in just 5 minutes, consuming 100 goblins. Suarin suddenly rushes into his hands, screaming, not 100, but thousands of goblins, worried that it will eat him. Goblin prison underground and growing stronger. Young Siwoo was still quite haughty. He really lacked so much, and if he first awakened, it would be exactly like the common goblin they had met before. So he chose to wait a bit. Woke up to be worth fighting for whatever it was. Was this a fantastic opportunity? Because the soul was clearing the goblins in the dungeon on their behalf. The system reported that the soul was awakening for the second time and turned into a devil wicked. He watched in delight as it finally came and even crossed the line that claimed Suarin. That soul even surpassed the rules of the dungeon he had been waiting for a while. It stepped closer, having eaten the goblin-acquired soul of the goblin's past. The goblin source allows him to use magic. He screams that he wants to kill people and then charges at them. Jung Si-woo replied calmly that it wasn't enough to kill him. He was bored because of that soul had eaten so many goblins. There was still enough for now. That soul turned once again. He needed to get stronger before coming back. Suarin felt bad because the spirit had died and knew how hard it was for the player to lose and turn evil. As a result, Young Si-woo stated, once it had eaten all the goblins, the next object would be the boss. At which point the two recognized the problem and raced in the direction the boss demon's room. Ate the leader, a goblin at times, and he came back so big, looking confident, that he could beat him. Suarin hides behind him and vows not to cry if he dies. He, on the other hand, says that it's nothing compared to killing a boss. And he laughs, thanking her for growing into a giant. Suarin's eyes widened as she realized that soul has the same power as Young Si-woo. He then instructs him to leave quickly, to avoid injury to the whole body. Soul fires and he uses magic to keep it hot. Young Si-woo imagines souls like fireworks, and he is immediately hit in the shoulder. Suarin nervously rushes to help with the healing, but she assures him she is fine. The demon then asked him if he regrets his life, but he said he can't die. And if it was leveled, he might be. Jung Si-woo hit the demon hard with his fist, and the demon couldn't figure out how he did it, because if he touched it, the fire would move. He didn't need to explain to those who blame others that to prove it, specially, he has worked hard not to rely on the power of nature. Finally, he cleared the dungeon in less than an hour. Suarin looks at the burn uneasily, hands him off, but he says he's fine. Inside, he questions how he can speak so nonchalantly, and states he has been through many dungeons and seen many different types of people damaged. But he yet to find maniacs who deliberately pose a threat. By provoking the enemy, they could be easily defeated. He wouldn't say anything if he had an easy win, but he had been injured. He replied that since he was aware of demonic power, nothing could happen. He looks into her intense eyes, showing that he enjoys this fight. From the moment they first met, he displays a very strong image too. Maybe that he is skeptical, his true nature. Siwoo Jeong says, "That's all okay, because he's fine. But what should he do? If he dies too," this sentence makes young Siwoo ponder. He realizes that it makes no sense to get stronger, and dies in this battle. He obtained a unique crystal, practically the best crystal, extraordinary capacity because superior monsters or boss monsters rarely fall. Dropping a crystal in the forum resulted in him receiving a fire spell, which he combined with his weapon to create an extraordinary powerful weapon. The two went home to rest. After gathering everything, but the situation was worse than he feared. Less than a few hours. After the whole world has been turned upside down by the goblin riot erupting everywhere. There are also evil monsters. Trouble in other countries. Fortunately, no strong monster appears. The country has mobilized the army to easily suppress the monsters. Some countries no longer have the power to take emergency measures, because the advent of the big monsters, and there is a country that can stop the monsters until the players of the Sky Castle return millions of people killed or seriously injured around the world. They are stronger than the monsters, and rational monsters appear without warning to the point that some may argue that earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, even better, the public directly criticized the Sky Castle and claimed that all the monsters emerged from it. But the players rejected everything, but they couldn't understand why monsters appeared. Earth was still nothing. Humans could do sky castles, and dungeons were places where ordinary people couldn't go. Humans had to accept that monsters appeared in Earth like they should accept Sky Castle in the sky. When TV reports that young Siwoo had saved people that day, he feels he's going to die, and Siwoo Jeong taunts him, saying he is the #1 in the country, his mother's hero. Then, went to ask if she had become a player, but she told him that because she was different from the others, a player, she couldn't express herself at the time. Her mother advised her not to do it, to go abroad to worry about other countries. Instead, she should focus on protecting her country. First, and her son is the most important thing besides her own. Mother realized the existence of Siwoo Jeong when she bought the dollhouse she had never been before, and started whispering to her at night. Her mother then asked that she give him money, because she knew he was hoarding dollars. She said, "Geez, she would take care of everything for him, set up a card account for him to spend money on, and if he had money, he could just put it in that account later." After everything was over, she advised him to live independently going forward because he no longer needed to go home as he had nothing to do here. Instead, he told him to keep himself busy outside his mother, made him special food. Before he left, when he arrived in the car, his mother told him that there are a lot of people looking for him, so remember to wear the helmet if he does anything, and he also asked Siwoo Jeong to stay by his son's side. When his mother followed up by asking if they would wait until the dungeon appeared, with no plans, he replied that the detector can search within a 10-kilometer radius. So there was no need to put in that much effort. However, he was a little uneasy about crystal reserves, as they have now realized how important breaks are in search engines. So they can't just randomly donate crystals to the forum while visiting typical dungeons and dungeons, which is easier to enter than normal. That she will definitely think about these two things. To process her crystal, driving at high speed when she stopped, did not expect to see. This is another difficult scene in her life. A player like Siwoo Jeong previously fell from above, but this player's 5 Dragon Nation and his level were also lower than his. However, such a person would be doomed if they could only take him to the dungeons. Something would happen. The dungeon anthill would reset once the player died, so he was sure it would open up. But they would struggle to survive until then. On the other hand, did, not listening to Siwoo Jeong, and rushing to help that individual. After all, they had have refundable tickets. So if they feel uncomfortable too, they can get out. Then he saved the person, and the 3 of them fell into the dungeon. At the same time, that moment was going to be interesting. The dungeon, Siwoo Jeong claimed, that he justly wanted to go to the difficult dungeon, therefore he couldn't stay with him anymore. The man asked for an explanation from him in the Sky Castle and on the verge of death. However, he intervened to save him, so they could have a second chance. And then, he thanked him. He understood the situation and realized that it was a dungeon that he set himself. while on duty. This was called a mysterious, and even though it wasn't easy, it looked obvious. Present, it was a dungeon that could include all missions. Siwoo Jeong to the man that he was not sure whether the two of them could escape from the dungeon, must first find the monster, and decide whether to escape or continue. As a result, when they managed to escape, he asked the man it wasn't to blame them. He calmly said, once enlightened, and if they left too, he wouldn't die right away, but he might be wandering around the dungeon, then going in until he died of starvation. Even though Jeong Siwoo noticed that this man looked very cold, not many people just accept their death as a result of such devastation. But he was sure, with Siwoo Jeong, that they were in the spirit of explanation. Siwoo Jeong pointed out that the entrance to jail number 26, also known as Soshin Battleground, is where players enter to take control of a small world, bust bosses amid monsters, and clear everything. Then, after that, there were many kinds of monsters distributed about many strong monsters, appearing and harassing players and prison gates famous for their cruelty. Among the various monsters that appeared, their armored General Oak was a superior monster, even more evil than his boss. Monster the powerful metal Snake Oak, the armor enhanced by mechanical coating, and the general is believed to be a strong man for decades on the battlefield and acquired varied battles, skills, and used that formidable power to full effect. As Siwoo Jeong spoke of boss monsters Metal Snakes, he advised them to be extremely careful with them. General Oak's skilled combat technique abilities were more than offensive. Moreover, the oak-armored soldiers put the player in a difficult situation. Because of their great strength and commonly used fighting techniques, Siwoo Jeong became part of the guild, but she advised everyone to avoid them. She said that she was unlucky, and that this is how he ended. And he apologizes for showing his senior miserable appearance. He tells Jeong Siwoo that he is sorry for being so young to lose it. But they have to come back, because this is the worst. Their loss could choose the oak armor so strong, even ordinary soldiers have a very high level, he said. It was a formidable enemy. Regardless, he had to quickly hand over the ticket. After a while, Jeong Siwoo still refused to give the ticket and said that it was difficult for him to find a strong monster, because he had not been squashed by anyone with the force. And then, since he was born actually, Jeong Siwoo, yet didn't have the opportunity to use all his strength, which he once had. I broke a boulder and it was already a lot simpler than he thought. Jeong Siwoo never imagined that someone with a body comparable to him might face him. This was the first time he found an object for whom his superpower was useless: resurrection. As a dungeon player, the body was enhanced with mana, although the strength has become stronger. But when he faced Oak, the opponent's armor was meaningless. The monster praised his technique, saying that, while his strength was a little weak, his technique was not bad. He replied that this was the first time in his life that he had heard such a compliment. But he wasn't mad about it. And then, he started learning some martial arts at a young age to control his powers. He learned a lot but never had the chance to be noticed because most of the problems could be overcome, with only one finger being the same, by becoming the player of his dreams. Whether it was the Black Wolf from the experimental dungeon, the Centipede, or the Goblin, they were all defeated with a single punch. So that Jeong Siwoo wants to do it and show both his birth and the techniques he has acquired over the years. That's why he continues to study hard to prove himself, not only by virtue of his inherent strength, but also by always focusing on something else and doing it. Best to develop himself. Not only he has the power of nature, but he also wants to show others his other talents he has studied well, and martial arts is one of them. He wants to prove himself unique. Without blinking, he watched her engage in the battle was incredible. Siwoo Jeong said that he most likely encountered another situation. It was more important than clearing the dungeon, and leveled up. Jeong Se-ha watched, struggling in awe, facing that oak. Perhaps that wooden armor that was very challenging to defeat. It could use strong power and magic, not the enemy, due to its extraordinary offensive and defensive abilities, and the ability to handle martial arts and physical techniques that players can only dream of without great skill, and ranged attacks that players will never do. Engaging in oak wood armor, he could rank in the ranks of the elite, if he were in the Five Dragons country, because of his technical ability to compete against such a terrifying opponent. Oak regains consciousness after being knocked out by Jeong Siwoo, who is brave enough to think of himself as a tester. For Oak, a technique, he adds, if Oak doesn't like it. Might try harder. The next action by him catches the two off guard. Jeong Se-ha is relieved, because the oak armor is vulnerable to long range and fire attacks, and they are also worried about the opponent finding it. Siwoo Jeong stated it was because the power of fire couldn't be prepared. before Oakhammer fell to the ground once again and stated that even though he had won the match, it was still enough for the crowd. The soldiers felt he would not be able to finish it. This dungeon was finally his equipment. And then, most importantly, now Oak begged him to kill him quickly since then. Over time he sensed that this area would finally rise above the ground. If Oak died anyway, he would lose a lot of mana, and the time of the land invasion would even be delayed a bit. On the contrary, the mana in this realm would heal Oak's entire body and record it, that the next time he is more prepared, Oak can deal with it with a new body. Isn't this the result that everyone wants to see Oak eagerly awaited? Then, he took all the food from the storeroom and gave it to Yong Se-ha to store in the cellar. Before the two left, he told him not to worry too much about running out of food, because even if Se-ha died, he would still have his soul form, saying that was fantastic news. But if Se-ha was still alive, they might come to see him. And then, Young Si-woo did not return to his bed, hoping to become so mastered without the magic power in the weapon. There was no way he could avoid the orc's blows. Of course, all he could do was strength. And when dealing with orcs, a single mistake would lead to his death. Instantly, he warned Su Arin that he needed to practice, because the problem was not just one orc, but that in the future of the dungeon, orcs with monstrous power would appear at level 26. Said the gate prison in the Sky Castle Sochian battlefield contains not only orc armor, but also many other varieties, incomprehensible, that he has no choice but to admit his strength, beyond his imagination. After a few levels improved in the battle with the monsters in Santa's ward, he was embarrassed that he was happy with it. Even with Su Arin by his side, there were hundreds of people in the world who were stronger than him, and the numbers were countless. Individuals in the world who were far stronger than him, and there would be plenty of room dungeon above level 32. If he feels he's a grain of sand in the desert, can't stay still, he has to pass through the orcs, and only then, he'll be able to defeat the General of Armor. Suarin sees him so happy, and thinks he'll be disappointed, saying that his value doesn't decrease compared to others, and that someone stronger than him doesn't need a change in attitude towards himself. When Young Si-woo first started training, he found that his limited mana was starting to slow him down. He had to go back to the dungeon and level up. Regardless of whether he needed it, to develop his physique or martial arts, the abilities he had to train to deal with monsters were more important. He had to finish them all before he died completely. Moreover, he had to secure as many dungeons as he could, before using up everything. From the crystals stored in the resting place, he finally had to act fast in order for him to survive. And then, as the two took to the streets, they learned about players who had managed to escape from the dungeon, using tools known as gemstones. At the same time, players thought the difficulty. Dungeons had increased all dungeons. Gates changed in response to the presence of monsters in the ground. Potential players who had not appeared in a long time suddenly appeared. In large numbers, new players reported in South Korea increased by 1,000 times. And there was hope for those who were worried about hundreds of thousands of retired players. And monsters continuously appearing everywhere. Young Si-woo left the place and stopped. Listening to him thought it was like trying to balance the generation of monsters that players around the world mushroomed. But at the same time, the dungeons in the Sky Castle strengthened veteran players who had been active for the past 10 years too, could be destroyed, even without passing the dungeon exam. So there are also candidates and players tied up, concluding that if the player is killed, the number of dungeons, anthills automatically rises. He suspects that a significant battle took place near Earth. But the current mission is to hunt the dungeon and choose the most dungeon. It was easy to hunt him. Ask for the first dungeon the two hunted was Su Arin's gaze, a large chalk dungeon. He's in the boss's room reminding him that it's been 2 seconds. Then the big slime had the rare ability to make it solid with mana, but he failed because it was very difficult to change the mana that had been refined by one form to another. But even after destroying it, he still obtained this special achievement because of the feat he may have received to complete. The dungeon was too fast. If he raised his level of agility and increased from 2 to 5, he was expected to only get extraordinary benefits or other special skills. But as his agility increased to 5, he realized it. His whole body's muscles changed continuously. The system also said that he had received noteworthy instructions, achievement, and that it will count and reward the participant with an award corresponding to the boss in each dungeon. According to Young Si-woo, this is not a task. It can be completed in a day or two. Looking at the mound of monster corpses he just slaughtered, It is clear that there is no danger in the dungeon even though the level is not upgraded at all. And the clear rating is X, such a flawed award. Very boring. So he did not do it. So boring. So he didn't do it. So boring, so he didn't do it. Then, anticipating the glass appearing, if he had been ranked, he would have this. It was a fragment, but kept all the mana beasts in the record, which was the essence of the boss monster. Even if it was Suari on low-level dungeon, which stated that if he wanted to swallow it whole, he would already be a thief. And since then, maybe just a few more slimes, the dungeons in the city, which he ordered him to collect them with. Carefully, young Siwoo advised him to leave all the crystals in the rest area. Then, in the next place, when they entered, there was a full of rats, and there was no need to use cry to know how to run because they were easier to deal with than slimes, Suarin reminded him, from the crystals that were on the floor. But he promised to come back to pick them up after the boss room was cleared. That was also his speculation. Last time he conquered the dungeon, he just ran, quickly kill the slimes, because the system instructed him that his feat was unfortunate. According to him, it was likely that from the beginning of the dungeon, he did not take out a weapon or attack directly on the enemy. And what if he wants to run continuously, clearing dungeons? If he managed to kill all of them without directly hitting them, it would be impossible. He could achieve the feat without violence. After that, all battle acceleration was support battle skills, so it couldn't be counted, Suarin complained. That he was a ruthless person, no attack, but kill them all. To be honest, he is very cruel existence. Just like rat racing, after the trumpet and jump into the river, even if they turn into brain monsters, they will not grow much. After a while, the system tells him that his combat speed skill has been upgraded to level 7. While he was just sprinting, in combat acceleration his skill had increased, which was fantastic. Moreover, as skill level increased, speed increased as well, while the amount of mana generation required decreased. Even more amazingly, he had run long distances, so he was free to shift direction. At any time, the key is to control the power direction of combat speed skills. It is raised to level 8. After reaching the boss dungeon and destroying it, he is right, they succeeded. After finishing, the two quickly left. No one wants to enter this type of dungeon to the second time. Jeong Siwoo does not understand the difference between award skills and achievements anyway, called live and skill, that is very useful for weakening opponents, only by owning it. Suarin explained that the problem is that he just obtained this creation. It is difficult for him to adjust it himself. Then there are more reasons not to stand in front of people at times. But because it is passive, it may be fine. What he prefers to employ that strong ability is the best passive skill. Because not only that, combine mana and physical strength, but also the secret power of the spirit. If he acquires the skill naturally, brought to the person at the time of the feat, it is certainly possible to have complete control over the power he has generated, which is also very helpful to his development. This is also the first skill Suarin has ever heard of in live players, because it should be good. After hearing the announcement, following, Jeong Siwoo assumed that the level did not rise this time, and that the dungeon would obviously only get 2 crystal stones, even though it's X. Suarin told him that even though he is good, his skills will not receive good items. After a week passed, he has already dealt with more than 40 dungeons, except he can't complete any special feats he has, not sure what to do, when all of his talents are very good. And the value where other skills develop makes sense, Suarin claims. Those unique abilities usually can't be obtained, because from what he currently knows, the country is quite strange. Suarin states that its magic power gradually increases, while others, the skill category is very large. The rate of development is 2 levels at a time, so that finally he has the power to beat other players. Even if the strength is small, if the control is good, it's okay. Finally, when he levels up, he becomes stronger than others. Before departing from Seoul, young Siwoo wanted to complete the Dungeon of the Orcs. If the monsters from the dungeon were released outside, it would be a headache. Each of the orcs were trained fighters and loved to fight. So when they were released from the dungeon, they would hold a killing festival. Although there were many strong players in Korea, for them the armor was worrying. Suarin's opponent thought it belonged to Jeong Siwoo. Abnormal growth, he suspected. It was because he was ready to grow, or because his mind did not rest at all, or else it was talent naturally. To be honest, he still can't beat them, but it's time to give it a try too. Time for him to see how strong he has. And besides, they're not the strongest monsters he doesn't want to get. Stronger and go back to another dungeon trampoline, which, not too difficult now. It's time to fight them, fiercely. This is when he will help improve his strength. He knew he wanted to return to the dangerous dungeons, grow, but he still advised him to level up first, because maybe the orcs will become stronger than before. If others hear this, they will be amazed, because everyone saved the country, because I have entered once. It feels like a magic entrance. It will collapse to the point where it can be entered. Just a light touch. Maybe the tale is not just for physical. Breaking the current thing, entering the dungeon has a time limit, which means that this challenge must be completed. Additional players enter dungeon ants. Nests can also cause dungeons to explode and monsters to escape outside. That was why he needed to do his best to clear the dungeon. Then, however, when he entered the fight with the orc, he was quite surprised when he had to respond and speak, as if he had just met him for the first time. He guessed it. It was something else. Beast, he said, an extraordinary warrior like no other. Has a lot of mana, trained body, is also very sharp. He laughed and said that he likes it a lot. A lot, so humans also have warriors like this. After hearing these words, young Siwoo, yes, smiled slightly, but the words were similar. He took his weapon and rushed to fight. Screamed, "Let's fight!" He kept looking at me, saying, "Brave and reckless is not bad, because keep talking and pay no attention to him." He received the first hit. Then after that he didn't get angry but said, he got angry quite well. He didn't expect to suffer damage from the first time. He can now freely use the link between battle skills and battle acceleration skills. Unlike before, he wakes up now, he praises that powerful skill. But he's not the only one who has it. Young Siwoo told him to show it to him. He will do it. Showing the strength of the orc, he remembers, said Su Arin. The orc armor puts all the mana to handle the opponent into mechanical equipment. But even so, it's not a skill. It can't be handled. The body's innate skills develop all the skill achievements engraved on the body. It is sky passive. The orc's speed is also faster now. Attacking is too dangerous. He is also quite smart and quickly realized that passive skill is said to be very pleasing to him. When he was weak strength, he didn't even realize skill. He had awareness. It came from accelerating battle to become strong power. Self-help, he kept talking. But his strength was not enough. He wouldn't be able to defeat him. Then, in the end, he summoned both of them. From him to fight orcs. Instinct was to enjoy fighting strong enemies, fighting until one of them fell. Su Arin so disengaged with him. But it's true that he couldn't imagine him losing. He kept calling me too weak, self-made. He was frustrated, Jung Si-woo said. It's because he didn't end it on purpose. If he doesn't already know, try and kill him. He finds your expression of enjoying the fight pretty good. So far, he's the first person he was difficult before, due to lack of technology. Absolute strength can't fill that void. But now it's different. Every time he collides, he realizes that as he grows up, it makes Young Si-woo so refreshing. If it only deals with the orc armor, now what? Later, if he is stronger than now, he will be able to deal with opponents who are stronger than the orc armor. In the end, it is fun to overcome strong enemies. Definitely can be great. The use of strong power is without a doubt something he does not do. Expect to be confronted with a stronger enemy monster. To kill, no need to suppress strength. He can freely use the familiar techniques of his body, or change it further. Strengthen and be able to gain unprecedented strength. Extraordinary. Finally, Young Si-woo won this time without borrowing the power from fire, but only using his mana and body technique to defeat the enemy. He admitted defeat and said, "I can't get anything from him anymore. Your technique is already perfect enough. But is it suitable for mana or not? Was a problem he needed? Studying in the future?" Young Si-woo thought it would be the same to get some pointers from the orc armor. After killing him, the two went deep into the forest. Then two orcs appeared and were surprised to see them. The humans who had infiltrated the two rushed to attack Young Si-woo. His exclamation was too slow. The two monsters were very angry afterwards. Hearing this, he was going to show the strength of the orcs. He laughed. "Of course the orcs are idiots. The opponent has increased to 2. But if you catch the enemy, right there is nothing to fear. Hit in order. Seeing the weak, the point is the end." Su Arin thought the orc armor was jet against monsters, spraying compressed air into the joints of the machine for an instant increase in damage. Jung Si-woo hit him with a hammer, and gas immediately exploded from inside him, telling the bastard if they want to get power implantation it will be better, so there will be more critical openings because of his great strength. His fighting ability is not clear, shown until he began to shine against the orc. The opponent was armored like him. He was watching the player's awakening, that anyone would be afraid after killing the two monsters. The two walked around the forest of this place, just like a part of the battlefield. Sotian, no matter how big the space has the number orcs. Then, appearing in a room is from 2 to 3, about 5 at most. If the space is tight, another path can be widened. If you want to be wide, you can run through the big one. The room draws the battle to your liking. This time encountering 2, the name of the orc. Again he complained that there were intruders, but no one gave the signal. But they didn't know. The other people had already left, he felt, that he chose this path too. Rationally, when he decided to deal with 2 children at once. From the start, these people used to fight alone. They were forced to work together to fight with him. The gap was inevitable. Siwoo Jeong was currently very tired, so he fell asleep in Jeong Si-woo's pocket. He apologized for letting him rest for so long. But after this dungeon ended, you guys, the 2 of you will be able to rest, so you have to work hard. I don't know if there are traps around here. I want to attract monsters. If you can attract it into provocation, you can have as many traps as you want, he thought. That this power and speed is indeed a superior monster, he screamed with thin human hands. How could he hit him? He said it was the first time he heard this sentence. At this time, Siwoo Jeong got up and helped him. He found Mana's power when he said he had the help of others. He swung his hammer to kill him. Knowing too much, it would be of no use to him. It seems there were more than 20 orcs hiding in the undergrowth. Now she needs his help. After a while, both of them managed to get in and kill them all. She says she shouldn't, because the experience points earned must be cleared from the dungeon. Except Siwoo Jeong taunted her until now and says weak words. It's through them, because the boss room is right in front. They go to summon a lot of monsters looking to kill people who have cleared their platoon. He only needs to fight a bit more to be able to create a passive skill. Even if he is facing 3 at once, he wants to meet their leader now. The thug asks if he can meet their leader. If not, then you go alone now. Just him. We'll be right away. Send it to the site, so rest assured. Hearing this, he went and said the leader will replace him with Justice Jeong Si-woo. Yes, laugh, it's good to control his anger, but you have to stop it. You can't run away after killing all the monsters outside. Then, Jeong Si-woo received an action skill. This is the second action skill he has created. Siwoo Jeong said he is always ahead of his expectations. He asked, does he not have a lot of mana? Being left standing is definitely a powerful skill, but because he has to handle 3 skills, at the same time consuming a lot of mana, because it is made using finishing techniques, it will reduce mana consumption a little from now. He asks him to rest, before going to the boss room from here. There are actually no monsters. Jeong Si-woo decided to break the traps first. Originally, the dungeon was not only filled with monsters, but everywhere. Whenever there was a chance, it was full of traps that threatened the player's life. When he found traps in the dungeon, he managed to destroy them all. And until now, there was not a single time when his feelings were wrong. Now he also doesn't know how he managed to catch everything. And then, saw a girl with a small body and wings like Siwoo Jeong. She appeared and said, hello, customer. Before the boss fight, would you like to drink a glass of cold water? She didn't know what trap it was, but luckily first she stopped at right time. It was a fairy. She introduced herself as, Luda elf will fly anywhere you want, no matter how you look at it. Doesn't look like Siwoo Jeong or others. She's a born monster, she said. Was she called a monster or erroneously referred to as a retired player? That was the most logical conclusion one could make. He was someone related to the Sky Castle, an ant nest. He was a businessman. Only a merchant got the value he deserved to provide services to its clients. Jeong Si-woo uses the 5 oak armor crystals in exchange for the mana item he is holding in his hand, saying, this mana will be restored. Surely the goblins will leave Siwoo Jeong? Thought it would be better not to see him again, he laughed. At least there is someone talk about it. And I don't know if it knows the secrets of the Sky Castle, he said. It will definitely not be easy for the 2 of them to know what things are not important now. The important thing is General Oak. You need to think about weapons and how to deal with him. When he went inside, thought Jeong Si-woo, he was already choking just by looking at him. His strength was different from the oak armor he had met in the past. He asked if he understood his anger and was aware of his own weakness, but dared to do so. Spitting out those words, Jeong Si-woo laughed again and said that if he turned the tip of the spear towards him, he won't be able to back down. Have you thought about it? Siwoo Jeong was shocked that she could win against the enemy without being so provocative. She'd been curious for a long time. What would happen when she hit a wall? At least here she got the right answer. Of course she didn't stop. Life would never stop. so I'm not used to stopping him, no matter how high the wall is maintained. Moving forward until the wall falls, he decides to do it. He laughs loudly, asking, "Is he stupid? Because his mind is spinning now. His goal is just to get your head." Siwoo said his conclusion was the same as yours. Suwoo said, that even if he had to face him, he would not be his. The opposite should be tried to find out clearly. He is different from other oaks. But that doesn't mean he doesn't rely on machines. He said a lot about their tail dog down, which you try to buy time now, before his attack. Useless defense equipment with just one hit will also cause serious damage. Hitting unlucky place will definitely die suddenly. Even if level 10, level higher than now, the situation won't be much different. But even knowing that he could not take his eyes off of her, his body movements were different from other oaks. His mind, body, and weapon became one in his heart. He wanted to fight 1,000 times. As a master, he decided that, instead of completely giving up on action skills that should be pursuing passive skills, until the end, this name is based on the body of a monster. It has created an immoral path that humans cannot reach, even with death or resurrection. Suwoo, who is beside him, now understands. What does Siwoo mean when it's most dangerous? Just focus on dodging his attacks, using little mana, and don't risking your life. He fights for a bit, then stops and says that he's only good at dodging. He laughs again. Not only is he good at dodging, he has never dodged anything in his life, because he is good at everything he asks. Are you testing dodge with him? Then try another. Next step, he wonders. Should he use the combat power of acceleration, while accelerating body to develop moment by moment and avoid attacks from enemies? He decided to use it, and succeeded there. There's nothing that can't be done by taking risks. Your life in an instant. The eyes of the battle level has increased to the 2nd level. He can see what you do and say, "Your mana is not that much, don't waste it. Run away like a mouse." He gradually understood his actions and learned how to control his strength. Suwoo next to him did not understand what Siwoo was doing, but heard him, called to finish off the monster. He asked how to finish off General Oak, he said. Know whose name fully activates the passive skill. He's laughing out loud now, that killing him will give him a skill growth bonus after completing the mission. Siwoo received many rewards, because he had challenged the dungeon. Also a lot that he has gained a large number of experience points. Again, Siwoo experienced a large amount of physical pain. Mana was pushed into his body. From the roots, to a certain extent, it can be seen that his body has not adapted to the weight of fighting skills. The weapon is now level 2. It is a wise choice to gain skills, and killing General Oak to lose 5 mana is a bit painful, but securing a passive skill at this point will definitely help a lot. Later, the weapon is now level 2. It is a wise choice to gain skills, and killing General Oak to lose 5 mana is a bit painful, but securing a passive skill at this point will definitely help a lot later. The weapon is now level 2. It is a wise choice to gain skills, and killing General Oak to lose 5 mana is a bit painful, but securing a passive skill at this point will definitely help a lot later. After the process was over, he turned his head to look for Suwoo, who was in the same pain. The level of support had increased significantly, and the healing magic power was natural. Besides, many active and passive skills had been restored, which were not available before. His 4 treatment limit was also lifted. He has also recovered enough strength a bit, so he can now go to more powerful dungeons. Yong Se-ha in small body flew up to thank him. He thought he really died, but I didn't expect. He can beat that general. He happily said that he will be absolutely loyal to him. In the future, he will be the pioneer to rearrange the path in front of you. Siwoo thanks him, his enthusiasm, but not make him a mistake in the future. Suwoo asked him not to say them, which is unlucky. He said he has 2 backers now, able to consume mana and materialize in no time. Siwoo cleared the dungeon alone and monopolized the crystals, even though there was a lot of pass-through. It was strange that they were very lucky. He went to the altar to see what was the reward for the dungeon. This time, it was a black helmet. I don't know what it was made of, but even if he used all of his, the power to hit him could be seen. It could last more defensively than armor. It was a C-term weapon. The remaining crystals were returned to their resting place today. The crystals he obtained were all stored there. While returning to the resting place, he asked her if she was blessed by the Earth God. After being withdrawn, he completely lost interest in it. But as you say, preoccupation. Recently, the 5 dragons are God chosen as players, according to the appearance of the Castle of Heaven and Nature, unreachable by modern civilization, and dungeon stories about the possibility of existence that surpasses humans are constantly appearing. If so, whether or not there are players chosen by the gods, any crazy argument may be the last. Then it can be seen as a rising sense of nationalism. If it ends like that, he will not be laughed at by others. But the higher you go up, the more dungeon levels you will encounter. Corresponding monsters can be said. That the existence of an unknown god on earth is a symbol of monsters. The power that worships a certain god is strengthened, so that it can happen to humans. God blesses and overwhelms other existences like a series of stories spread quickly. In the elite country, they also comment a lot whether it's a characteristic or a god, which really made Siwoo curious. By the door inside his room, he guessed this place was clearly the dungeon. But if you open another door, you can get out to the surface. Although it can be known that the door isn't an ordinary door. But why is it more expensive than crystal? Suwa Rin, Bed said. You should level up anyway. But stopped talking and finished quickly. Looked at him and said that he has been a bit careless lately. Just thinking about the courage passive skill, stupid he accepts easily. To sum up how he said that when he likes something he rushes in, and when he sees something he wants to touch it. If there's a door, just open it. If you see a monster, hit him. But what to think? He is such a person. After upgrading from a double, now the bed has become a king-sized bed. Suwa Rin feels that the quality of the pillow also improves the three of them. They go to bed to feel, he says, this bed no longer vibrates. Suwa Rin also says, this bed is too quality. Yong Se-ha is speechless. With these two, the bed is very different. Increases mana recovery efficiency and stamina, just sleeping on the bed. Skill will also increase. I really want to dive into this bed, but I have a lot of work to do. Siwoo stares at the door, guessing, where can he go from this door? When he hears that he wants to go, he gives him a crystal to try. When you open the door, you can enter the nearest dungeon by consuming crystals. Thanks to this, he doesn't need to directly hit the ground with his tail. Now think about it calmly. The dungeon feature is also quite good. It slowly fell to Seoul. Unlike the dungeon in San Howard, last time there were earthquakes and monsters appeared continuously. They didn't have to worry about anyone paying attention. Just put the key into the ground to be able to enter. And then, after resting, the three decided to go shopping together. On the way, Siwoo found many cars with the same style as him. I don't understand why people copy him. Just lucky enough to be on TV once. Suwa Rin said, doesn't seem to know the power of the media. He is currently the world's attention, because it was he who ended the disaster with minimal damage, on video of the confrontation, with the monster spreading fast in the media, strong enough to captivate everything he asked for. He is among the players that he doesn't. Seems to be a very aggressive player. He said his magic power is superior. Moreover, he is a person with superior strength. Those who carry powers that do so don't suit their bodies, and those who are already strong from the start have a fundamentally different attitude. And the act of him showing up playing around with goblins, defeating goblin generals with one swing of his hammer, there is something very interesting about him. Siwoo's image at least thinks so. There are people imitating him, so he is completely undetectable. And then, when he went to the supermarket, it was quite crowded. Inside, Yong Se-ha told him that people currently buy things which are quite simple. Food and weapons. The TV shows the place being attacked by 3 monsters. They see a monster that appeared simultaneously near the waterfall. Sioric mountain light beer was suppressed, but not long after, became larger. The number of monsters appeared. There are still many people trapped, their scale spread out of control. The incident was only part of the monster spawning range around the world. Korea's Sana wards were shocked by the appearance of the first hunter and its first dungeon being destroyed. But in other countries whose dungeon is not lost, when the information is broadcast, more people are looking for Siwoo. He wonders if there is still a dungeon. If he goes there and completely destroys the dungeon before the boss monster is released, not everything will be solved. If they think you are a good player, then that's a big mistake, which he said to the two. They are players stronger than him. Maybe they already are. If that's the case, then the monster will be dealt with in the end. It won't be quick to save humanity. Suwa Rin says there aren't many players who are stronger than him at the moment. Before becoming a player, he was close in strength to a level 100 player. As a basement player reaching level 50 and creating his own passive writing skills, he has to rest first to get his body back to normal. That time Sioric Mountain was still in turmoil. Then they will go together. Thought maybe when destroying the vault, there will be a solution. Siwoo returned home to continue practicing from the depths of his body. He felt many small stars shining brightly. Not that he could see them with the naked eye. He thought they were in that place. but he could be sure of his star aura. The method of linking with his body could extend to the future. All of them emit a special light indicating their presence. 5 to be exact was still too short of him. Passive skill. The 2 smallest stars huddled together after watching and practicing for a while, even though the body changed a lot. But now he knows how to use it. He wants to run around with the hammer now. By the way, he also checked the rest. The skills of all walking was easier than he thought. Jeong Si-woo found that besides digging the ground, he could also move around freely compared to the first few days of having a tail. It wasn't difficult to move. Now his ultimate goal was to cultivate a thorough technique to the point where anything else could be handled with a tail when hands were busy. Thinking about it, I calmly understand why he doesn't care about that story. It's faster the players use the way to fly freely, anywhere, so basically they have great mobility. If so, then of course he also has to use his tail when fighting because his tail is long, so he can't face enemies directly. But if you can control his tail more proficiently, it won't be difficult to deal with enemies attacking from behind, Jeong Si-woo thought. About what if his tail is injured? Siwoo Jeong says. Maybe his tail is no different from the 2. They are, and no matter what they do, the wings will not disappear. Of course not like wings. Not attacked, just in case. Getting hit by the attack will directly affecting the body. Can heal wounds with medicine or healing magic. If the wound is too severe to be healed, the wing thing that is not attacked might also lose. Firstly, when he was dropped to the ground by retirement, he could not fly with all his strength to the sky with his wings. After knowing everything, Jeong Si-woo wanted to go to war. Yong Se-ha happily wanted to go with him. Finally, this moment had come. He said that if he actively worked and was caught by the video, he would have a headache. So he just sat quietly. He didn't know what interesting things would happen. If he took a walk with the 2 of them, everyone decided to arrange to go to Sorik Mountain. Until now. They still didn't know what happened in Sorik Mountain. The 3 of them arrived around here. No players, and no trace of monsters. And then, at the beginning, the number of Korean players was not much in the first place. At this time, even though they were selected as new players, they were still training in the palace. The sky was not a lot of good players. Enough to practice too. No, the 3 of them knew what would happen. Out goblins or slimes don't say, but there is also oak in the video. After all, it's not a disaster caused by 1 or 2 dungeons either. No players fall in the same dungeon. How about the players who died in other dungeons fell to the same place? He asked the 2. Is there a place called Composite Dungeon, Su-a-rin, that can be understood, that the Sky Castle Soshian battlefield fell to the ground? But it will be slightly exaggerated when the dungeon exploded and the boss monsters free. It was clear that something had happened. People thought that if they asked a monster, they might know something. Jeong Si-woo directs everyone towards him. I'm sure you would have noticed if you went a bit further, Yong Se-ha praised him, for being so good when feeling the trail of monsters from far away. He thought it was just a sense of direction, that he was going, crazy as it is. If you run in a certain direction, you might meet monsters, Su-a-rin says. He appears. He hears someone asking for help. Ewing Shu. Ya wonders if he was stuck all this time and is still alive. There are also goblins and dozens of armored oaks, he says, and it can fill the whole dungeon. That's very clear. That the other races were acting like they were going to eat humans, he added. That a demon lord or a dragon would also appear. Su-a-rin complimented him for getting more and more sensitive, Jeong Si-woo said. It's not important now, but save the first person, 2 people hiding in the bushes said. That if it's too strong, they should run away. Jeong Si-woo said nothing special. A lot of mana or energy, the monster said. He's a strange human being, it doesn't matter if he doesn't do it. Understand what's what for now. He focused on killing the monster first, seeing that his power is so big that they want him to run. But he saw it. You can attack freely, but it's not like can run go freely. The players he saved was amazing. The time was so short that he defeated all the monsters by himself. Jeong Si-woo was busy asking himself why did he level up this game so much. It was fun just fighting monsters raised a slightly different level from what he had heard and experienced. Till now the 2 assistants accompanying him also leveled up. Su-a-rin was curious. If catching monsters outside will increase the level, I don't know if this applies to everyone. He said if it's a player, then it's for sure. Maybe it only works for dungeons, players like him. Su-a-rin thinks. The latter will be right, because this is the ant cave area, not the sky. Jeong Si-woo's castle area thought about it. To check it, then went to other players. He asked if they should kill monsters, increase their level. He got answer. That they caught a lot of monsters. But the level didn't increase. They asked again that it was not fair to clear the dungeons in the Sky Castle to increase the level. After receiving this answer, everything turned out as he thought. He asked everyone's injuries. They said, "It's okay to go back to the Sky Castle, alone can heal him." They all thanked young Siwoo. This turned out, there was a girl there who recognized him, asking, "Not she from that Santa ward." He didn't answer fair. Glared at them, there was a lot of danger. Then silently emphasized these words, then asked, "Do they understand?" Young Siwoo felt he lacked the means to attack from a distance. Suarin said, he could only pick up a rock and throw it at Oak's head. He meant to have the skill machine gun. Exterminate the enemy from Suarin. Far still holds her opinion. She thinks it's fair. Takes stone to fight from afar. Enough to kill the Oaks, she tells him. That if she wants, she must practice skill bullet skill. This really didn't get his attention. Then he tried to use his finger to control its size. This was just enough to kill the goblin. Among the action skills, his only ammunition was stagnant. Young Se-ha suggested he added rotational force to it. If he added spin to the ammunition, it would maintain the center of gravity and not deviate from the trajectory. Not only that, but his ability also increased rapidly. And the problem is he tried many times, but still failed. He realized that it is true that it is more difficult to transfer rotational power to ammunition than to create a new passive skill, so he gave up at this point. Young Siwoo wonders what it will be like combining with another. Skill not ammunition is one of them. Hit application, he asked both of them. How can it be combined with acceleration battle such as change? Ruthlessness is important. In battle acceleration, that mana attribute will be cancelled to speed up attack. Sustain it looks like a simple skill, but it is also a skill that affects mana property. By realizing the special point, therefore, in focusing on cultivation, he was able to control mana naturally. Then, breathing in battle acceleration, thanks to that, violent changes can be made will not be easier. On the contrary, it is important to implement combat acceleration. To very little, all activities are concentrated on the fingertip. If he leaves it like that, the finger will be bent at the time of making mana, can use bullet skill immediately shoot. He finally managed to do it. I feel very simple. Then, Suarin went to check the internet and to look up information about this place. But all there were no monsters. Shot down the helicopter. So how could anyone get accurate information? Any news was possessed. The 5 dragons stopped attacking the dungeon and descended from the Sky Palace. Jung Si-woo felt that he was fine alone, but the place was too big. Besides the players, they also found the ordinary corpses of people who were killed by monsters. More labor was needed to prevent further damage. He also supported mobilizing strong players to suppress the situation in Mount Seoric. Suddenly everyone was talking. When he ran, he heard the smell of fighting there. He hid behind the bushes observing the situation. They dominated the group. This guy was also quite good at fighting. Suarin said, "If it's just Mana's strength, he's much better than them." Jung Siwoo laughed, letting them continue to beat him to leave through the battleground several times. He realized that one thing that meant the player's body, something to monsters, actually players have to protect their comrades, but they can't control it because they fight. But when the monsters find the player's body, the reaction is embarrassing. Maybe the monster's purpose had something to do with Mana Suarin's guess. And if it's not mana, it's the soul before, as a player, he knows how to control the soul and doesn't know about the mana contained in the soul. The important thing is his soul-gathering skills. Now it's really special. And then Jung Si-woo again found where there were signs of battle near him. He felt like it was a good player. But if there are too many monsters, then people might have a lot of trouble. He went there to help them. When Jung Si-woo swings his hammer to attack him, surprising the player girl, he helps. Swinging the hammer just feels like cutting with a sword, which he tries to apply the swordsmanship he had before. Learning with a hammer is strange. The feeling of using a hammer he thinks is according to the level that this person must have more than 200 strength. Why didn't he know until now? But now is not the time to investigate. He couldn't stand still. He raised his gun again and started to fight back. No matter how confident he is about fighting, his happiest moments are when he has a trusted comrade by his side. Seeing his strength, he was equally shocked. The effectiveness of the ammunition was too high. Suarin was watching from the outside, thinking that he was a shield that really couldn't be underestimated. Jung Si-woo destroyed everything behind him. That girl always shoots lethal weapons. That just one person alone is terrible enough. 2 people team up monsters, feeling that they can't fight back and find reasons to escape. Another girl said that because they can't fight the 2 of them, they went back to their superiors. And then, He suggested the two of them follow them to kill the leader. The girl's name was Marana Bissett. She was born in California in the United States. 10 years before the second Sky Castle, it turned out that she was one of the first players. She had extraordinary talent, and the aspiration to be strong. She is called an angel who has the common sense of battle. Complete the dungeon door with extraordinary feats, the most powerful and simple action skills to attack the enemy with mana. She is also the first, the world's people to receive ammunition. If you compare mana with other players, mana basically overwhelms the opponent. He only uses one bullet to get it. Through the prison door, although not a loner who likes to play alone. It's just that other players can't keep up with his pace. This battle is the ultimate battle fierce. Since he stepped on the sea mountain, there are too many superior monsters here. If it is a superior monster, it is possible to receive mana crystals. It was obtained from the goblin before. Then, she didn't expect that he also knew about ammunition, so she pretended to coax to know what it was. She looked at him, then said, "Hugging kitten cuter." She didn't think so. She tried to act cool to look at him. It's commendable that she didn't think about mobilizing force. Whether it is, the amount of magic or active activity is clear that he is much stronger than him in such a situation. This is not using force to solve problems is a commendable thing. Even though we know that this is the right thing what to do, actually, it's really hard to do. He thinks it's arbitrary, asks her to say, it can't solve it. So he needed to find another way. He now asked her, what would he give her if she told him? He called this negotiation not threat of violence, but start from understanding each other's position. If she offered a reasonable price, he would think she should also receive so valuable information. She took out an exchange rifle for him, although she didn't understand why the gods called her. That name she thought was an unreasonable item would also be accepted by him. That currently sealed? He said, ammo upgrade is his treasure information, he thought. How much ammo he focused after all. Probably it was because of stubbornness that he reached his current position. He said it took special skills to make it. And then, common sense, after hearing what he thought, that it was indeed a brave warrior who only believed in his own abilities. He replied that he agreed with this, the transaction, and then the two were exchanged. It wasn't easy for him to reveal his identity to others, but he revealed it to young Siwoo. But he said it was the most unreliable word. Today the transaction of the two was completed, and he wanted to leave. He said they both have the same goal anyway, so just follow it. Will follow the monster that is hiding more early on. Don't worry, he has knowledge of tracking techniques. Even though Suwa Rin and Yongse Ha are in his pocket and can't get out, it must be quite uncomfortable. He knows she wants to get away from him, but if he comes back, he will go ahead and catch them all. Aren't you aiming for the boss too? Suwa Rin tells him that he won't be like that. Detected it would be better to go with him, to deal with the monsters. In that case, Mount Yong Sa Ha also thinks like Suwa Rin should join. And then, Jung Si-woo turned to him and told him to hurry up. Ability to fly, as an adult, it can be said that just taking the wings will effectively increase the body's strength and agility. And next, he asked, is he not a player? He asked, what is he like? He is said to be a monster. Calling him a monster is a combination of battle acceleration. He also believes, if he said that he would think so, he thought after that, clearing Sayoric Mountain, he will do it. While returning to the dungeon anthill, if he is stronger than him, there's no need to think about hiding his identity, because everything does not use force. It is known that he is a player in the dungeon. He will be bullied by others. On the contrary, he can make someone else does what he wants. And then, they quickly find them. His presence is also the leader. He screams at the people below who are still short of blood, soul, and mana. He summons another monster of his, shaved heads. Everyone has that much hatred, Jung Si-woo said in a low voice. What an extravagant attitude to look at, even stronger than Armor General Oak. He asked to kill that man. He asked if killing him would complete his plan. Now there is a leader to control them. But if you kill him, maybe they will run. And then Su Arin quickly thought to herself, I don't know. But if the two of them work together, there's a possibility, she said, before, when at the San Award, even though it was lacking, when the leader lost, they also disappeared. That he was too shy, thought it was very beautiful, first the hunter that no one in the world knows about, now he knows. But he also killed the leader elsewhere. But absolutely nothing changed. It could also be a very important first step. He said they both were talking when he was silent, and told him to hurry up. Looked over the monsters. The sacrifice the leader said was this time. Then ask who is your god. They said, something you don't understand compared to that, the mana they have scattered and filled the whole area. He stood beside her and scolded her. The time when the cursed fanatic believed that monsters also had gods, the gods were fussy and angry. That was the ritual, the sacrifices he had seen before, but this time the scale was too large. Their gods wanted to influence, he thought, only in the Sky Castle and didn't expect to come here. The two decided to rush out for a mob fight. When he saw it, attacked the leader, shouted a powerful sacrifice, quickly caught him as the last victim. What Jeong Siwoo called the sacrifice was very difficult. To be heard, the boss starts making fireballs. Attack him. If the boss makes all of those, the fireballs will become formidable. Abilities can indeed be related to the rituals they perform. Su Ah-rin reminds him now that he didn't have time to calmly analyze, he said. He needed to pay close attention to how they attacked. After that, observing for a while, he could see them demonic path. He thought that even if he was hit in the front, it wouldn't hurt too much. Without needing to expend his strength in vain, he also had the skill to resist fire and be able to take multiple attacks. Dodge what could be avoided, hinder what could be prevented. What couldn't be avoided and prevented had to be prevented, of course. At this moment, he really wanted him to open his eyes wide and hit him hard. Young Se-ha is still in the grass can, using only 2 words, scary to describe. Read the trajectory of hundreds of fireballs, and dodge is accurate. Su Ah-rin asked him to save mana quickly. He said, not used yet. So now its normal physical strength is not again a matter of power level. It's more like what's called a superpower. Like having an extra heart, the more active you are, the stronger it becomes, and also feeling that it gets stronger just using mana with scream skills. And then, war doesn't need to use mana for this. Junkies the boss shoots fireballs even when his allies are in range. Even though it's like killing all his underlings, he plans to catch Jeong Siwoo. He shouts again to offer blood to the altar, as long as he donates his people. Everyone would be perfect. Then, he witnessed the attack. Jeong Siwoo was a monster. His movements were as brutal and fierce as a beast's creature, careful not to waste anything, unlike someone who had no physical aptitude and only focused on mana, processing like he thought it was his. Mana processing ability was indeed special, but it wasn't. It turned out that he was wrong, but he only cared about now was the boss monster. His mana movement moved. Silently, it was also the monster that was the consecration of another superior monster was completely different. From the fireball was flexible magic. He suspected that he would be in danger, even though he wants to warn him. If Young Se-ha appears outside, the plan will be turned upside down. But now, he had to attack the leader's mana wall around him. Thick enough? He poured as much mana as he could into that gun, almost. It was unthinkable to hide his presence, before being expelled. But if you attack once, there will be no more chance of being able to escape without killing the leader. In time, then there's no way he won't do it. No now, so he has to do it. Okay, he thought that should save him. First, compared to Korea, which was ravaged by failed strategy, it would be a big loss for him to be able to become a stronger person in the future. But the boss was one step faster than him. He completed all that clear magic combined with earth. The horrible nature of black magic was pulling the enemy down and killing them now. He had no way to stop this. But what happened next made him unable to believe that he could use his power to escape shadow magic. Then, he saw the best opportunity to kill the boss with one punch. If he was able to stop worrying about it in vain, he said, if he had time to say these words, he could focus on killing a few more superior monsters. The monsters shouted that God had abandoned them. They would fail. If you two want to capture all of these monsters, it will take more than a week. He wants to divide the two goods cooperated by the two. What appears in the real world will not only leave crystals, but leaving everything behind. Before other problems hindered the people of the 5 dragons, arrived the two had to share what they had fought for. For he said, if they knew the war was more than that, they would talk to them. What he liked about this idea anyway was the boss had his head flying. Not knowing his expression, he took the boss's mask, saying this must be a treasure trove he was thinking of. If the name might have something to do with the shrine, he said, if you want it, take it. He already has the helmet. He told him to take his gaiters. He didn't. Think about the lower body armor. Leg armor is B rank plus. It feels good enough for him. And then, it seems that he has received additional passive skills. Suddenly, the two also found a B plus rank. The effect of this bell can summon all that needs to be summoned, no doubt. This is the ultimate gift for them. No matter how they look at it, two start struggling to spar. This bell is endless. Su Ah-rin tells him to hurry up to sense the other players coming. It is finally decided that the bell is his, and he will receive the magic stone. and possession of the boss body he knew from the start. What he wants is the magic stone. After the exchange was over, he wanted to quickly leave. Young Siwoo returned to his resting place, lay down on the bed. There is nothing wrong with fighting, but after it ended I felt a lot more comfortable. Suwoo Rin asked him to rest his muscles. After all long time stressed, he brought a huge magic stone obtained earlier from the giant's boss. He looked at it and said it was different from the monster magic crystal. He could feel mana and death. But the magic stone he held in his hand had life. He said it would be very good if he could control the mana here. He didn't know if he could eat it. He told him not to do it. Mix the other mana with the mana inside him. If he spontaneously combines his mana was messed up, Yongse-ha asked him to take it out to process and craft artifacts. He also thought that through clearing the dungeon, his level would increase when clearing the dungeon. Everything he did too. Mana may be space dungeon not to process the monster. Mana, and return it to the player. Suwoo Rin found this argument quite interesting, but he didn't think about it that far. That's why when dealing with monsters in Mount Seoric, his level also maintained increased. He said, in his case, there was no need for training. Mana was good in dungeons. Or outside of training. Mana works if so, we can't wait any longer. Jeong Siwoo put the magic stones into his possession, making the two people next to him panic, but in the end he himself was fine. But it seems that he increased in strength. Then he took all the stones and put them in his mouth, and ate them clean. In a mysterious place, there was a man who claimed to be the ruler whose life depended on it. It was impossible not to accept or feel burdened. It was enough for him to survive alone. But he would not stop dreaming. Then, Jeong Siwoo, he saw a mysterious thing. Dragon full of evil is said to eventually bite everyone to death here. He woke up. Jeong Siwoo looked up at the sky. The sky, for a long time he was not used to the sky. The sky, at this point he found that all his skills and level have been upgraded. He doesn't know what he was dreaming of. Suwoo Rin wakes up and sees him in surprise, asks what happened right. He comes back from hunting alone. He says he just woke up. He picks up the bell he received earlier. It was broken. He asked if it flew out of the space box while he was sleeping. And then he turned around and broke it. Said he heard that he was sleeping soundly. He saw a bell with no mana left on this rope, no longer a heaven bell artifact. Initially, the artifact permanently increases the ability of the user. It is one of the normal parts of the dungeon. Jeong Siwoo takes the bell and wonders, is it because this is the bell he dreamed of last night? He tries to take out the tail. It must be stronger. Suwoo Rin says, this time it is more likely to be a dragon tail than a snake. And if it is a dragon tail, it suits him. The image is better, he says. He has slept now. He needs to move a bit when he returns, both of them. They see his brother's body in surprise. Ask, how did he get stronger with just 1 day and 1 night? Then, Suwoo Rin was also very restless. In a short time he became stronger, he said. It was because he adapted to the power of his skills. Maturity, they both said. He's a monster. Jeong Siwoo just laughed at him when Yongse-ha said that he must be a person who has been blessed by the gods. He asked them, it's natural to kill the gods, not the 3 of them. Continue to hunt the undead dungeons that appear. It is 1 level higher in difficulty than other dungeons. From zombies of the same rank are not really dead. Moreover, each individual carries poison appearing in the group. Then, he explained, that his anti-poison skill would prevent him from existing, being poisoned by zombies. But considering the difficulty of the dungeon, the attack of the undead appearing would be higher than that of the zombies, he asked. Wouldn't there be ghosts that attack people, like in fantasy novels? He said, if players' bodies were aware of mana, it would be possible to reach their bodies. If you add divine power to it, you can attack more powerfully. At this time a ghost appears softly, saying that it's been a long time since someone lived. He is very happy to make Jeong Siwoo jump. He says it's been a long time since he raided. He says he found her soul. No matter how deep the goal, he will save her heart. The quest this time is that this ghost wants to complete the quest while still alive. He asks, how is this different from dealing with a boss? Yongse-ha explains that this is not clear. Prison dungeon, he asked the ghosts of dungeon, sky palace, and ant hill. If anyone is sure, they are the same, said the ghost. That the structure of the dungeon is the same. And mana created the dungeon, exactly the same. Jeong Siwoo agrees to help him, Suwoo Rin says. He doesn't know about this dungeon, but it seems so. There is no such dungeon in Korea. And then, like he said, He led the three to the Syrian community cemetery. He said, "This place is not like a cemetery, but more like a city full of the dead. The ghost tells everyone that in this dungeon, there are lots of zombies, and skeletons even have people catch and eat ghosts to their fill. Grudges no power can deal with the banshee's nest, which is so big takes them out and sleeps peacefully in the grave." Then, they had to find and destroy the hidden magic. Siwoo said it was okay to just walk around the dungeons. A soul that had the power of a priest couldn't help, but he was lucky. He said that even though he didn't know how to cheer up, he will take care of it. Then, as soon as he wouldn't be worried, he swung his hammer at the wall of a nearby house to attract attention. It was just knocking on the idea of a house. But the buildings were connected like dominoes. Ghosts silently wiped away the flew of sweat. With just one hit, 7 buildings were lost. The system found the presence of magic hidden in the city. "If you want to know more, you should search the city," he said. "That if so, the scope of the search is quite large, like an adventure." The current story, a large number of zombies arrived, scared the two. To hide behind him, Yong Se-ha asked, "How many people died here?" But it was too much. The ghost softly spoke, "Countless watching them." "But this monster is not like in the movies." He asked why he was so calm. Jung Si-woo said, "He hates dirt, so he wants to eat it," while making Suarin amazed. "A large number of monsters were destroyed," he asked. "How did he do it?" Jung Si-woo asked him. Could he not do the same with him? Ran out of words to say. "To this brother," he said. "Of course," he whispered. That the day ended doomsday, the zombies started. Yong Se-ha stood behind, watching the crystals fall. "This dungeon is countless. The monsters all turned into crystals just now. They entered this dungeon for less than an hour, and the city was already about to be destroyed," he said. "Monsters being crushed to death seemed to be a relative, powerful monster system again announced that to weaken sealed monsters needed additional spells to get rid of." He asked ghosts, "Is there any way to weaken the banshee?" But this is the first time he has heard of it. That is, everyone finally found the first. The magic formation, after searching for ghosts for a long time, told him to be careful. Superior monsters could appear at any time when he asked where they were, and Suarin quickly saw him hiding behind a tree. Seeing them made him feel tremble. Then, after destroying everyone who received a hint the object to be sealed was an undead monster called a banshee, he asked where the rest were. The ghosts who told him there were about 8 left, which he destroyed next to receive information as an elf, before death. Mankind, after infected with evil magic, it becomes a demon and causes death of human. Next thing he got is it can change to free form, Yong Se-ha said. The banshee's power seems to cover the whole city. Seems stronger than Minister Oak's armor. He smiled when he saw the two who have never met. Whoever has the strongest magic. What a chance. The last he received information about living in the city, for hundreds of years made countless adventurers fall into the deadly quagmire. At this moment, the ghost next to him turned into a vicious devil. He laughed at the stupid fool. It was so stupid that he didn't even notice. In front of him, Yong Se-ha said it was indeed a ghost. This I already knew, so it needed no introduction. The ghost winced and asked, what was he blabbering? Then attacked the ghost, saying, that was he a priest in his previous life? Or not, he was also a magician. With a gentle smile more pleasant than anyone, he said it was clear from the middle part. Suarin asked, why did he leave him alone? He said, it was because of weakness at times. If an unenhanced banshee is completed, no good crystals or notes will be received. Once again the two rush into battle. She asks Suarin to give her powers. As a result, the ghost loses half of its body, and half of its body is naturally inferior in magic. After Yong Si-woo defeated the demons in this place that was originally a ghost town, but now it has really changed to Dead Town. After clearing the dungeon, he received many awards and levels. It will take him less than a year to complete 32 dungeons he received only because he's also talented. Another normal part for this time is the Secret Seeker. The downside is that it loses effectiveness. After 3 uses, do not expect that just clearing the dungeon will get a strange reward, he said. Don't worry about anything else. Finding crystals is good. Then Suarin asked what he did with the blessing of his spell power. He said it was also an enchantment. But a little different, he said. That if he was a top player, he wouldn't have to fear the undead monsters anymore. He asked him to put aside that unknown thought. After exchanging crystals with the altar, they left this place. He stuck the key in the ground, regardless of whether there were outsiders, but didn't expect that the place they teleported to was the underwater part of the sea. Then, before teleporting back to the resting place, He met the gaze of the monsters there. When he came back, he asked too if the public burial was at the bottom of the sea too. Could Suarin said that the Earth's sea area is much bigger than the other continents. Players with retirees will go down more seas than on the continents. He said it is important to only catch monsters from before. Suarin, who can't believe there are monsters in the water, asks, is she mistaken? Seeing that she immediately asks, does she want to go back there to check? The three of them continue to talk on the topic. If monsters are released into the sea, she says, if that's the case, wouldn't man no longer be able to use the sea that he did? Don't think otherwise. They probably hired a player to protect the cruise ship, or the transportation. He said that what happened to sea asked someone else to take care of it. They will do their job. What they entered the dungeon again was the nearest dungeon, maybe also underwater. Yong Se-ha pointed towards the approaching ghost. This time an old man, he happily said, that he finally came and his lifesaver. According to him, this banshee changed his concept too. He said he probably didn't know they had finished the dungeon before. Second time entered the dungeon. Jung Si-woo thought the most optimal. The attack was to maximize the strength of the banshee, and the giant ghoul went the most number of zombies and ghosts. He followed the banshee's instructions to destroy the magic formation. To make the banshee stronger, the ghosts who followed the three thought they could only avoid the monsters, maybe a weak race. Went to attack them. He only needed a hammer to deal with them. The ghost started to have a headache. Was he strong or weak? Banshee fell into chaos, she thinks again. That she got back her powers. And then, smoothly now, does not need to stop his actions, after he changed his body into a devil. The first sentence he said was still scolding a stupid human, but right after that, withdrawn with one hand by Ying Shu. Yes, only then he did it. Ask whether he knew everything. Before, no care. What was the problem of Banshee? Had there was also an underground prison boss, he smiled and said that his plan had entered his head from the beginning. He did not understand how he could be complacent in the altar. Then, after they cleared the dungeon, it was different from the previous altar. It was special. The altar that only appeared when clearing the bonus stage. The altar was fully functional. The altar opened a new path. Based on the records, come to think of it, everyone could get their own class. Clear 10 different levels of dungeon. But he was a basement player, so he didn't know whether he got it or not. Suarin said on the altar a door appeared, maybe a crystal loading method to get a class. When he went inside, he found that this place is not Earth. Suspected is not an anthill dungeon, but maybe close to the Sky Castle, entered a high-level dungeon. It was like entering another world, he felt. That this place was quite dangerous. He felt that. It was not clear. Yong Se-ha said that before. You know what happened here? Everyone should stay here. Jung Si-woo also agreed. If they come out from forest, people of this world might be alert eye them. Take this opportunity for him to stop. Monsters came to the village at the right time. They will help him settle down as a soldier in this society, after listening to it. Suarin laughed. He for reading novels came too much to, let's just say the Sky Castle did Anthill Dungeon also has monsters. So this place isn't... He's starting to speculate. Again, that maybe the monsters that everyone hunted have come to this world to attack, and made it their colony. A turn, it was Young Si-woo who scolded him to read more novels than him. After that, a lot of speculation everyone also reached to enter the village. Yong Se-ha flew to observe the situation inside. But suddenly there is a village ghost without the shadow of people. Jung Si-woo goes to a house to find out the house is tearing it down. Everything decays into nothing. While there, for a while the three of them were attacked by monsters outside the city walls. Jung Si-woo heard something, but he didn't know. Suarin said it was Durahan's voice that was being transmitted through Mana's death, was his. Favorite thing if Legion's death resulted in death, then it was very interesting. He looked forward to see when it would be able to show the image. He switched to agile mode using stones to attack monsters. Yong Se-ha told him that it is. Eat their own kind. He said that because there is no quality reduce quantity to increase strength. Jung Si-woo said this is not a dungeon, but a living world. Yong Se-ha saw another elite eating magic stones. He said just now, don't change the amount he asked for. If they know what is the biggest difference between the dungeon and other places, said with a smile, that it is level up. If mana increases stamina, it will also recover. So there is no need to regret. Thinking about thinking she didn't see him using mana. But the Dullahan's voice came back to him, saying that he already used mana. He started attacking them without heeding the mockery. Suarin said the second wave had not been gassed, but If 100 giant ghosts ran into the wall at once, Jeong Siwoo had a serious face. It didn't miss, he kept asking. Was he worried? Don't know why he fell down here, starting with he just war? Stop this, where he told him that he absorbed mana undead and grew just to kill low-class criminals. Siwoo Rin used to worry when she saw a group of monsters clinging to the wall. She told him not to pay attention to them. When they climb the wall, the headquarters will be destroyed. Then, he repeatedly attacks them with stones. The three of them are attacked by monsters with poison, and Jeong Siwoo screams, "Take them, both must leave, and retreat to the rear." The system displays poison doom. The night enters the body because the toxicity can't really overcome it becomes light. The country that was poisoned immediately, after the poison resistance skill system level increased to skill B level. The one hit possessed increased to level 26. The level he possessed increased, he thought, that when the direct battle the level increased the moment it died, the level increased even more. That surely, a high-level undead after him would have a fairly safe skeleton. Countless skeletal bones have been combined, so the weight is limited, including death and misfortune are artifacts, Siwoo Rin said. In the dungeon, it could not be obtained directly, he said, that when he was in Mount Seoric, he also received the same artifact from the giant. Jeong Siwoo holds it in his hands, better than his hammer. Yong Seha says that he can take this opportunity to receive a new attack. Jeong Siwoo decides to give it to him, puts it in the first box. The boss starts talking again. He doesn't believe it at first, but he was completely unaffected by the undead mana he had created. If they let them go and slay the army, perhaps even stronger than now, he said. He would not leave you alone. This time he would take action directly. The humans of the planet Star resist war now. After the battle with the boss, he started to attack him. He used cruel change. But Durahan's speed is faster than him, he said, giving up what human can have excessive senses. The amount of mana. Even so, the result is an increase in weapons only. Before Jeong Siwoo attacks, his horse first condition must be fair. He wants both main roads to fight. He is very angry because it is his precious possession, horse. He shouts loudly for him, at that time using all his attack power. He can guess it is the technique in game that Yong Se-ha said. It was also the first time he saw this. And then, his master's skill had already learned it. It was amazing. Siwoo Rin asked him not to be there, complained again, got away from it. But the speed was still not comparable to that being hit from behind, not light. The monster screamed to accept the durian fury, along with a scream that Jeong Siwoo was attacked again. He swore loudly, luckily broke his ribs. At this time, Siwoo Rin realized the situation and flew to his side, to treat him, while she attacked him once again. Jeong Siwoo prepared a mana spell and counterattacked the monster's head. The head was hit with a heavy blow, he said, with a strong force. Jeong Siwoo said it. The head was also hard. The two of them fought for a while more, not giving way until the monster said it was interesting. But here we go, he said. He would subconsciously acknowledge Aura and her powers, but this is the world where mana dominates. If mana accumulates, it will end luckily when the attack was just sent to Yong Se-ha in time. To be taken, he goes. He angrily asks, "Where is he?" While he lost this situation, then, he reminds him, that this is the time, he says, it's time to use the hammer. This is the option. He screams for the hammer to grow. The hammer is launched in the monster's body, but suddenly there is still strength to fight back. Jeong Siwoo laughs this time. He must be fascinated by Jeong Siwoo, he angrily asked. How is that possible? How can earthlings be like this? How can Siwoo Rin be watched like he was sent flying away? Jeong Siwoo said. That's the villain. It's like that. Flying away like this is useless, gathering Yong Se-ha carrying the magic stone left by the person he held in his hand, saying that this size can get 5 magic points. The world is really a beautiful place. When he thinks about it, there is also a stone. Where's the knight? And then, while it was her right to collect loot, now was not the time. The monsters had lost their boss, but still had the same move, which she needed to finish first. She suddenly found a mana stone. At this moment, Siwoo Rin looked at what she was holding and said, it was the head of Durahan that she found. It was an artifact whose attack power was also quite large and was still absorbing magical energy from the surroundings. Then using it as a weapon to throw that monster, it's amazing. It can even come back by itself. But then he feels it. It's not good to consume too much mana. He took it after the war ended, he said. He no longer recognizes this place as a city, he said. That although this world doesn't have many names left behind useful things, this world has quite good dungeons. because I just said that if this was an old mission, I am willing to do a few more. That was not the intention originally. Siwoo Rin felt bad. Jeong Siwoo collected books and records in that area and started to find out information about things here. From the things he received, the information that gods existed like vigor and mana, who were stronger than other worlds, and the subordinates of those gods were currently aiming for Earth. Then, back down to Earth, after returning from that place. Both of them had turned into tall people, Siwoo Rin said. He had seen faint tattoo-like markings on his arm. He felt strange. If it was a skill, the action wouldn't appear. Yes, the power skill is an action skill, and also features a passive skill that has a structure that gradually increases physical strength. And then, when he uses it, of course the consequence of sequelae is also quite severe. Jeong Siwoo asked both of them to try practicing for a while. Siwoo Rin asked him not to rush. Speed is good enough. Jeong Siwoo looked on his scary face and received a day off in heart. I thought it was cute when it was mini-size, but now it is restored to the strength of its original form. No joke, he said. If not 1 day, but 7 days is better. But 1 day was hard for me. He could not accept that he couldn't run in the driveway in front of him, Jeong Siwoo thought. That no matter what he wanted to gain momentum, he had to kneel down, an example that didn't seem very appropriate. But everyone rested anyway. He asked the two of them, "Is it the status quo? Must be maintained?" "They need extra beds," Siwoo Rin said. "When to sleep, only 2 people shrink." Enough when he was just sleeping. Someone called. He thought he was sleeping, so he didn't wake him up. The person on the other side had something to tell him. He knew that he always wanted to be a player there now. The way to be a player, so he wanted to tell. He was afraid that he would not believe him. He confirmed once more that it was true. It was an artificial method to become a player. He said, "This is not easy." Then, he took out his cell phone to check it, expectedly no decent information. Siwoo Rin stood up thinking that if she wanted to handle the current situation, she should learn about him and Miss Sian. She passed by. She thought she must still miss him, felt that the situation was a bit dangerous. Jeong Siwoo decided to upgrade to rest area before leaving home. When everything was fine, he left. People came back to New World to feel vitality, Jeong Seha said, that he thought he was locked in that rest place for several months. Siwoo Rin said that the clothes worn when leaving was the most comfortable place. But strangely, the two of them stood in the middle of the road. But didn't see anyone there. A few apartment buildings nearby, and there are also some restaurants before, so this place was always full of people. The atmosphere seems to have changed after the incident in Seorik volcano. Siwoo Rin said there were some similar cases in other countries. Jeong Seha, I guess maybe the players who entered training will finish the trial and go out. This situation will continue until human strength is strengthened. He took out his cell phone and decided to do it. "Call Suhi first," he said. He had been to a nearby coffee shop. Then, Siwoo Rin must have thought she wanted to come earlier to see her reaction. She felt that she didn't like this girl. Her attitude was as if she knew her well. She thought to make Jeong Siwoo mistaken. That she felt afraid of you. Talk about stealth techniques. For a long time it's okay, now you 3 go see what kind of player. He has become on his way there. He keeps observing him, still seeing many people on the main street. But the Soren's face didn't seem very good. In the bag, Jeong Siwoo thought. As expected, the hardest person to deal with was his ex-girlfriend. Another girl said that when she stood near him, he just realized that he has grown enough. He humbly said only a little. But he looks younger. He said, "It is the privilege of players. Players will not age. But on the contrary, the higher the level, the younger they will always have a body of 20 years, healthy and strong." Jeong Siwoo thought, "It's no wonder. He looks different in the mirror today. He can feel the atmosphere is cold." She says better not follow him, asking why she didn't ask, because she knows that if she just met him and wanted to ask so badly, she never would. She replies. She laughs and says, "That's brother in the past didn't think so." But actually everyone needs to grow up. What he says, he's not 100% sure. He could guess that there was a rumor that had been circulating among some players for a long time. Rumor said that a monster had appeared in the dungeon of the Sky Castle. All believed in a different god, he told him. That lately there were monsters, not only in the castle, but also on the ground. There is evidence that such a god exists and can bestow powers upon mortals. Actually, he has found traces of God in his state. He asks God if he turns people into players. He thinks he's a liar that turns humans into players. It can't be on the same side as God. That's what Suhi was talking about. He says, if he becomes a player, he will do it. Must be very strong, he thinks. that even being a player doesn't mean that those feelings will return. If he says it's him, he'll be slapped now. He needs to find out what Suhi said in the Traces of God. He told me about his trip to Japan and his chance encounter at the Temple of the Gods. He worships monsters. Later, his team joined forces to destroy the Guardians at that moment. It was God's voice heard that person saying, "If you follow him, you will be granted strength, able to trample all monsters." Jeong Si-woo heard a feeling. This is like a fairy tale, he said, that as long as he goes there, he will feel the real strength. At that time, the guild members were actually 108 times stronger than usual. The more he spoke, the more suspicious. He became words. This was anyway, he asked God who said that. Those who couldn't become a player had a chance. After receiving an affirmative answer, he contacted him immediately. He asked the temple that contains the power of God. How can other players ignore it? Thanks to the barrier, even though he was a late player compared to others, he was able to become a guild master. Thanks to that special ability, Jeong Si-woo thought that the temple was hidden by a barrier. He told him that going to Japan was complicated anyway. He said that it was good to fly without permission. To cross the border, the player is said to be a criminal. He said it was because of his protective abilities. He can hide anything. He clearly said that before he was a very good student. He did not expect that when he came out, society completely changed. When he brought him to the mountain, he asked where the other members were. He said they were waiting at the hotel, down the mountain. The other players who saw the foreigners wandering the barrier would do so, suspecting he was waiting for the guild members to feel what it was like to be 108 times stronger. Of course, he had some hopes. Usually in movies, the main character in this situation would be very worried. Where everyone was standing, suddenly there was a big earthquake. He guessed it must be a temple. Suddenly a crowd of monsters appears. Right after that, they aim at a holy place. He says they both miscalculated. He will handle it to find a hiding place. Jeong Si-woo says he is good. He asks him if he forgot. Even though he doesn't have wings, he doesn't never having the most strength. He started a boring massacre in the world. After he finished dealing with the monster, he was worried, asked if he was all right. He knew he was proficient in any martial art he was capable of handling. The monster, he thought, was as expected. The person fit to be a player would be Jeong Si-woo, he thought again. But if he really became a player, would it be fine? How strong was a monster like him? As a player. But he didn't want to see her go into despair again. First, she had to think of a way for him to become a player, she explained to him. That monster carcass that hunted outside the world was considered new material and traded at a fairly high price. Monsters, especially strong, have crystals called magic stones, which are expensive, but there is more, further information of the truth. It was a secret last time we dealt with the gardener. We found out, but made him the first player. For now, just put this body in the space box. Then deal with them later. As the two of them continued to enter, himself comrades also came. They were afraid of suspicious people, entered the shelter, so they had to be quiet. They asked him what all this was about and misunderstood. He, as another guild member, Jeong Si-woo, thought about what he was worried about step by step. To be overpowered, also had seen what the future would be. He said, didn't he tell everyone to wait in the mountains, whatever he does? Then he should have explained to everyone normally. They didn't need to know. But now that was their shrine being more agitated than usual, shouting it was theirs. They were suspicious because he was exercising his right to rule over the guild, getting the most out of it in the first place. He doesn't understand why with him there is a barrier they can reach the temple. He says now is not the time for that. Their casual analysis is crazy, so they intend to attack him. He asks him to stop saying such unbelievable things. Can every member get hurt? There is a man with a knife running to attack too, and he stopped self-made. He intended to run to kill the guildmaster without hesitation, or was it because he was trying to stop him, master, from leading people to the temple? He attacked with a knife. A group of people who were about to rush in were stopped by him. He asked if they meant it was also eager to monopolize the temple, so he attacked him. He asked everyone to calm down. Did not say a word that made people enter was his fault. If they are still suspicious, he told them to use the power of the temple. First, if that can make people comfortable. Only then did he realize that they look very strange. The barrier is now also exploded. God appeared. He said, just follow him. Believe and follow his words will be achieved. He stuttered panic and asked God. His friends looked very strange. God set's appearances were fine, but compared to their strength, they were too weak. They made that appearance because his process of receiving power from him lasted till today, he said. If they want to have his things, then you have to find another. Cell from within, he asked. In short, he turned humans into monsters which he did not know what to do with his friends. No matter how much power he received, he could not change nature. That God told them both not to worry. Change into their form, he and she proved to him. The two people are qualified to receive full power. He said again that he was different from the others. The one who was chosen wasn't he some people who would be banished away? He thought of the word proof of qualification, which meant dealing with the monster attacking around the barrier star. And in every monster, there was a soul that was once a human. He asked her to step closer to him. Didn't he promise her before he said impossible? He didn't believe what she said. He arbitrarily judged the true will of a human and destroyed it. He apologized to her. It really wasn't worth fighting for. This time he said it's okay because he didn't do it. Believed him in the first place, not that he didn't believe him. But what he didn't believe was God Sheng Shuya smashing the idol with hammer made him very angry. He screamed, "Why did you dare to make a new god fame now?" he asked. Is he a motorcycle delivery man from a Chinese restaurant which is currently popular on the internet? He apologized to him, but he didn't want him to call him, that he thought that people like this would do it to destroy their abode. Before they were going to go outside, Siwoo said that if he wants to say something he will do it. Say it again another time, then give it all. Right to that side, the reason he went barrier at the temple is because he and the other members couldn't do it anything to gods with their own powers. He just felt a bit more at ease now. However, when these powers disappeared, his comrades still hadn't returned to their human form. Suarin flew up, she said, that they didn't completely turn into monsters. But now she doesn't know what to do, said Suarin. Their current state is normal. You can tell just by looking at the body where the body is turned upside down. Finally, he decided to kill them both. Then, Suarin and them appeared to explain to the two, having retired but not their ghosts still alive. He couldn't explain to her in detail, so that was all he needed to know. For now, he asked if it had anything to do with him being a true player. He's no ordinary player either. He can never get to Sky Castle, can only operate the ground. But now you two need to talk about something more important. This time, he tried to sort out he was officially active since the monsters appeared on the ground. Moreover, he also found evidence and traces related to monsters and gods. All the monsters' Earth is under the control of God. Moreover, he might be able to turn humans into monsters to understand their goals. He hid his abilities from Jung Si-woo's thinking. True that he thought that Suhee, who was basically blind, thought that maybe he was tossed around by the gods. So he was alert, that's what he said. So he had his suspicions before you were like an idiot. You're in danger. It's not true that the enemy's magic power is very big. That time he also told her not to blame herself anymore. It was the fault of those guys who were obsessed with the power of God. And she wasn't hurt either. Instead, he should feel lucky that she didn't get in the way, but helped him. He sat there for a long time, then stood up and said that he should get up. After all his own, he couldn't make her work so hard for him. Moreover, he had already done too much in the first place. After seeing that her situation is better, she decides to leave. It's weird leaving Sui in this situation, but she is determined to be alone, and if she stays, she will make her think and blame herself even more. Then, now that the three of them have passed through a new world, now that Suarin is certain the transfer quest brought them. Here, fortunately, the air is completely different. Still breathing, it is completely different from the places they have been before. For she feels the power of God just now, and this place is very special distribution. What do you say people can't compare in size with each other? So is his strength inside. He feels that there is power everywhere. This place is the strongest mana flow of the desolate shrine, was corrupted by their appearance. People still don't know exact location, he says, since they still haven't found hidden this secret. God, just take it as it is. They can crack it. System shows that everyone has entered Aryan system. Believing that the brain exists if this place is completely destroyed will reduce the brain's influence. God on Earth by 3.6%. He says that to show them thanks, they should destroy this palace with a grand system. Reappear if the movement is too noisy. Then he will be given the brains of the Guardian, and the danger of possibly increasing the path to Earth will remain for the next 5 hours, during which time it must destroy as many temples and guardians as possible and get out of there before the road is closed. In 5 hours to destroy the temple. This scale if you move slowly, maybe not enough time in the first place. Destruction and exploration are two things that cannot be done in parallel. So now he started to break this place until Jeong Siwoo used the head of the monster he collected before destroying everything. He used it because the power could eat up the head in his hand. When he destroys the electricity, a monster appears at the same time. Yong Siha asks if their level is low enough. It's possible, but no matter how low they are, also their oak armor, though this power construction is unknown what it's made of. It has unusual durability, says that, but he's still easy to destroy it because he's the one who caught General Oak's armor. When he changes clothes, his position, he finally finds the dungeon. Where is the monster and chases him? The temple destruction attack is now 16, which is too good. It's the first time they both saw a trap, unaware breaker like Jeong Siwoo when that monster saw him inside. They all scream to kill him, thinking they lured him here to kill him. If you stop, they will chase you behind and stab you in the back. If that's the case, then you keep playing stupidly past them. When they see her strength, they all say, "She is a monster." She turns to look at me. They are not monsters either. She takes care to protect her heart and head. Luckily, his bones and body didn't hurt much. Siwoo Rin asked him to hold on a bit, then started to heal him. All the monsters still died. No, they're already chasing here. They live in danger, and they can't move, Yong Se-ha said. Definitely so because of the majestic passive dragon skill. That they were crazy, he said. That if he did something scary, the effect would always be maximum. Then, it was a good skill, Siwoo Rin said. That for the skill to be effective in the future, he needed to be impenetrable by lightning arrows again. The three of them went deep inside and found a cellar storehouse, and it was quite reasonable to having guards when fighting monsters guarded. The head of the quinine door was broken when he was tested for its sharp strength. Only need to put Durahan's head in the resting place drawer, and the helmet will recover, if not to use another helmet. Siwoo Rin reminds Jeong Siwoo the monster turned him feeling it was slower than before, instead using each other's power. Once the time it was used continuously, it would become slower. If so, he could get close to it and deal with Shu's Ewing blows, while cursing loudly. Failing that, it burned him and didn't injure him lightly as expected. What Brain God chose as a guard was something unusual. But the lightning wasn't enough to injure him. Fatally, he watched it for that long. And while it was true that his defense wasn't that strong, before using lightning to roast everyone that must have been dealt with quickly, he asked Siwoo Rin to give him strength, but once again was defeated. Siwoo Rin asked, did he have no other choice? After seeing him over and over again come back, if you want to attack without approaching, can only use the God Brain Gun or Kinna head, but Kinna is broken. If you use another with someone blessed like that, you can make it even stronger. On the other hand, Siwoo Rin thinks if she can use deviation magic and healing magic at the same time, and if you use Skin Stone, you should be able to withstand lightning right now. Siwoo Rin is trying to channel mana to help him. He is next to her. The praise is too cool after a while, she tells him, that she is running out of mana, and she says not to worry anymore. Jeong Siwoo Ya feel that lightning is relatively reduced. If it is used too much, it will be permanently consumed by magic power, consuming 2 mana to form a lightning passive skill that I did not expect. To produce antibodies, the process of being hit by lightning and recovering over and over again. Then, instinctively, produced antibodies. The three were curious. When an altar appeared in the dungeon, maybe the castle sky not only locked monsters inside the dungeon, but also locked the altar. God, it doesn't matter now, but if you put things in there, something might happen, Siwoo Rin said. But this is the altar of God's brain. What would he give next to the altar? Engrave something that Jeong Siwoo could see. It was different from the language of the place where they had visited. And then, it explained, the 3 problems when the battle was decided, that the shrine could be used. The child who touched it directly was a child who was enchanted with God's brain power, which was the explanation of the people who received blessings from him. Finally, the sentence that should be fulfilled once, probably referring to the fact that the altar was only used once, he said. That it seemed that in the beginning, there was no need to use sacrifice. The effect was to strengthen the creature, rather than create an object. If that was the case, it could be explained. How did they risk their lives to guard the dungeon like that? When they entered, an inscription called Little God Appeared Altar. It's not a lot of magic power, but for Jeong Siwoo it doesn't make big sense. An existence that could be powerful, apparently, that presence he could feel. And it was in the face of a power that people couldn't access. Perhaps feeling despair, and others might find great respect. But he would first do it, aiming to become stronger than that person, the way he didn't think of fighting weak people. First, next heat, he put the god's brain gun inside the altar. This caused many dungeons to vibrate. Monsters gathered there, making it even easier to destroy his dungeon. But suddenly the message board appeared. He had to kill the monsters, in left 18 minutes remaining time. And then after that, he also joined Ying Chu. But the problem was not as easy as he thought. Not strong enough to sing Se-ha couldn't deal with the Doom Knight Lance's skeleton with his abilities. Currently he can disrupt monsters. Monsters he doesn't have lightning protection skills like Young Si-woo, but he realized that his fighting style was very different from before. His fighting style in the past was always afraid of retiring, even though he was equipped with a hard armor. During a challenge he always kept his strength to dodge, except for Young Si-woo, a different attack without knowing what to expect. In an emergency situation can also overcome it. Amazing, since the beginning of the battle has been a turn-off atmosphere. As long as you leave the strength, the probability of the enemy revival will be higher. Think even he is jealous of the wings that increase his mobility. Now you don't have to be afraid to see his fighting style. He prays to do well, he returned to the battle, did not have time to face vermin. Their main goal at the moment is to destroy the elite monsters compared to other monsters. If it is enhanced by a god, the brains of the elite monsters are 2-3 times strong. I don't think it's easy. To end it quickly, what the hell did Young Si-woo do? Say about the small temple, it's that wide. As an elite dungeon that appears is the brain voice of God calling them dare to insult their god. He said there is no extra to say like that, long words. But even if Charlie Chaplin forgives, he cannot forgive. After killing Monster, he collected monsters into the space box. Because Suhi once said, that monster's body is precious. The system was notified that the remaining time is 15 minutes. Thought he only killed 2, but it took almost 3 minutes. Left 10 elite monsters. No, there was another way he could use the potion in the refrigerator to attack them. Just when there was last minute, a boss monster appeared anyway. Young Si-woo had gone mad, so naturally he would destroy this shrine in time. Left until the enhancement was 3 minutes. Now he only needed to kill the monster within 3 minutes. When leveling up, mana would recover. On the other hand, it would be hit a lot. It would collapse and its stamina would also decrease. Then, thinking that if he doesn't win, then stop. The temple's destruction level has reached 99, nearly destroyed the temple, absorbing all the mana into the gun. God's Brannon Gun of God's Brain upgrade time remaining 35 seconds. All the monsters in the temple will become brains weakened. God takes damage and power and accelerates his descent. Gun time increase God. Brain 17 seconds left. Young Si-woo listens to it and does not believe the truth, only 17 seconds to catch it. The eel armor absorbs the mana of another monster to heal its wound. It turns out that the god's brain was originally meant to strengthen this one, and then descended through it. That is immoral. It is true that there is a large amount of electricity now. It is not safe to attack now. Monsters in cartoons and comics are watching the hero, transformation. For some reason the system appears again. God's brain descends through Sunder's elite. Supine monster danger level is raised. Very high, it will attack the altar where the weapon is. Boosted. If you dodge now, the altar will be broken. Young Si-woo had no choice but to stand there. To protect the altar, the system told him that he had been hit by a strong lightning attack, because the lightning resistance skill could not fight back completely, so it would paralyze him. Monster, after being upgraded, was very powerful, continuously attacking Young Si-woo. Young Si-woo restrained his strength. The monster asked him with such small strength. Young Si-woo was currently a little unstable. This monster's strength was too great. Using superpower skills, he felt like his arm would break. But for now, he just had to endure it. Suddenly, Young Si-woo saw the monster. The aura weakened. He saw an opportunity for himself. Now is the time when the monster did not believe how he could do it. Who could see his weak point from the completed system? Awaken the seal. God's brain gun will be released at once. Young Se-ha quickly flies to the side of the altar to take out his weapon. He informs Jing Shiya the weapon is ready. At this time, the temple's destruction rate has reached 100, and God's brain power will be weakened. Lightning resistance has reached level 7, is not crippled in lightning attacks. Below rank, Young Si-woo has reduced his seriousness. Expression now has a chance to win, now the monster said, even though it can be called a fake body. With this strong body it can't believe it, he laughed and said. He waited to see when it could leave a mark on him. Time to maintain the skill superpower doesn't take long. He has to finish it quickly. Su Ah-rin shouts at him the brain gun. The aim is to give birth to a new power, if it is possible to activate. This can weaken the aids. Jung Si-woo tells the two of them to play. That too, after the activation of the monster, Mana is absorbed by the god's brain gun, screams in pain. Once he dared, it was his strength to take advantage. It was weakening. Jung Si-woo used a gun to attack his head. With a scream filled with hatred, released, he thought to himself. If he sees Yong Se-ha again in the future, he must remind him to be careful with God's brain. The time to maintain the power of super skills is coming to an end. Moreover, leveling up many times in one go, making the body shocked after completing the task of destroying the temple, he also fainted, making the two very worried. It was not long before the three of them were outside. Before he regained consciousness, Suarin said, "Destroying the temple was also good. That's why he could go out," he told the two of them. Before another monster came to leave this place, Yang Se had frowned and said that he had something to say. Then pointing to the weapon that he can hold in his hand, he smiles at Yong Se-ha. "But looking at it will probably ask what it is, or should we say that it is still heavy enough to die? It is also thanks to this power, knew that one can live," he said. Even without it, he can still win, he thought. Maybe while facing that giant snake. He used a lot of that power, really like a scene from legend. It was not enough for him to speak softly. He had told him with this power that nothing could be done to him. It was not God's body brain and not damaged by mana. Even he had a hard time winning. So he can't be complacent, Jung Si-woo tells himself. He must be stronger than before. Su Ah-rin asks why he is like that. Cute, honest expression before returning to the resting place. Yong Se-ha says he wants to eat. All three agree. After returning, everyone sits down to watch the levels unexpectedly. In just one day, he gains 12 levels, due to dealing with large number of elite monsters and descendants of the gods. But after changing the position every time the level increases, it seems that the scope of development of the stater is increasing. Su Ah-rin said, the other players also during transformation, the body was changed to suit the corresponding class. Thought it was more powerful, so just let it be Su Ah-rin who was cooking in the kitchen. Suddenly ran out and asked the two of them to come in. Then, the cutting board, showing it could process something. He put down the multi-magic tablet. He held into it, confirming that the magic stone was suitable for artifact orientation. It needed materials more suitable for crafting. After placing all the materials on the stove, the processing starts more materials the higher the final result, wondering, is it not mana stone making? Even there are materials. Su Ah-rin is worried that if the crystals she has just put in it will come back, she said, that although the result is a little different, it was because she was cooking for him. This was not mana stone crafting, but artifact crafting, making artifacts match the theme by adding appropriate materials for certain mana stones. This was where the special function of the kitchen was enhanced. Yong Se-ha asked him how to check the rest. Material, he said he seems to know a little, then opened the material. The table has bones, skin, and scales from an armor deal. He said maybe this is the raw materials and materials needed for finishing and items that people can feel modernity from beginning to end. Items that cannot be used in the dungeon, even if wanted was a motorbike. After receiving the motorbike, he and she both wanted to go out and try it. Su Ah-rin sent the two off, left him cooking. He felt mana drained. While riding that motorbike, he can use magic too. You can supplement your magic with magic stones, then immediately turn on transparent mode and fly up. When transparency time ends, or objects touching transparency mode will no longer work. After the two come back, Su Ah-rin has prepared a luxurious table. The food looks like this, but she has experience in cooking, and lives alone. After all, it is the first time in her life that she feels someone making such delicious meat, she thinks. She can only flap her wings and destroy, but suddenly she has talent. She says she has talent for healing too this time. Without him, it would be dangerous. While everyone was eating, he asked where the motorbike was. They both looked unusual. He asked if it was an accident. Yong Se-ha said that maybe the country's technology development competition will become more fierce. It can be said that the two of them have created their motivation. Su Ah-rin asked. Was it already done? Maybe it was already done. He told her not to worry too much. Luckily, she couldn't see his face at that time. Because he was wearing a helmet, the picture of the two is currently being searched a lot on the internet. Both Korea and other countries raised related questions. Artifact making after eating and drinking, everyone went to rest. He felt like he had returned home. He said that they continued to destroy dungeons without any time to rest. After just lying down for a while, he decided to go hunting. Dungeon again. Surprised Suwoo Rin already did. Finish the rest? The day is not over. Even though he said he had transferred enough, the brain of this world said, God, Jeong Siwoo, how much is right to relieve stress? Too much rest makes the body more susceptible to fatigue. The players will be tired, because once they enter the dungeon, it will take a lot of energy, he says. To recharge, they have to rest for a month. Then, he says, that just by increasing one level, the body will be completely healed without getting tired. He asks the two of them to speed up. Jeong Siwoo easily completes all the quests. Given by the spirit the ghosts give themselves to Jeong Siwoo. As promised, the number of souls he currently holds is 84. He doesn't understand why he became the chosen one. All the unjust souls that fell to the ground. Says he has become a true soul collector. Next dungeon. He says elite souls will be his again. He obviously calls him a savior. But will he make it? He says the dungeon is full of dangerous traps. And it's hard. Kill them all. After completing the mission, Jeong Siwoo asked Suwoo Rin, how long ago. He said it's been 2 hours and 3 days now, even though his level has increased. He doesn't rest during that time. Suwoo Rin said, he will do it, tired too. You said you have to be tired to finish, but since there is a dungeon where level 100, monsters appear in movies that he can raise 2 levels. Suddenly, as soon as he mentions it, they appeared, he said. It was level 140. This demon was a monster that players avoided like armored monsters. He during the battle thought he was being hit on purpose, but now it was time to level it up even more. If you want to develop further, you have to cultivate stronger defensive ability, monsters if possible. The boss is pointless to meet them. Jeong Siwoo, after finishing the fight, realized the problem. Even though they know they will die, they can't stop themselves. Maybe it's because of their belief. But they still don't know where the monsters that appear in the cave come from. From the first place, the monsters appear as a sky castle that he doesn't have. That many definitions, no matter which one is Rhyme's monster, which one you only need to destroy everything. Then, after returning from the dungeon, it was a mess. They didn't know what happened. He said it was like the earth expanded, and the outer crust broke during that time. The time something seemed to have happened, he could feel the mana in this place, Suwoo Rin said. He was happy that he had become a great user of mana since then, but compared to the current situation, very unhappy. Strangely, this mana was neither player nor divine, but earth. He asked both of them. Was this also made by the invader? If that was what happened, the scale was too large and more convincing that the earth was stimulated by players' mana, and monsters transformed themselves. He thought back, dreaming of mana with the incredible intensity and density of earth. He denied himself that it doesn't have to be now. Not the time to remember those faint memories. What matters now is the taking of changing places on earth. Jeong Siwoo worries him. Mother will also be in danger. The phone and the internet crash. Suwoo Rin suspects that during the chaos, some radio stations had flown elsewhere. Then you need to move to an area where you can make phone calls. When he turns off his motorbike, people around him recognize him and call for help. He refuses and leaves. He needs to find a place to call. It's not like they are in danger. It's just that he doesn't have anywhere to carry people who are already safe. He just wants to be safer as he flies. Above, he looks at the environment below him. Right? That everything is so messed up. What is happening in the end? Suwoo Rin said, a lot of people will die, also thinking that surely a lot of people will die, but it's not something they can do. Suddenly a monster appears within their range, Jeong Se-ha says. That if a monster appears at this time, how much damage will there be? After dealing with the troll monster, he gets into the car and leaves. Jeong Siwoo looks around and looks at it. There is no monster other than the one he just hit. If the dungeon explodes, there's no way there are no trolls nearby. It must stay close. Then there is only one meaningful conclusion. The troll just appeared. There is naturally. Jeong Se-ha screams to heaven. He doesn't know what the world is like. Then, Jeong Siwoo said, maybe this change of earth to prepare for invaders. When he realized that his cell phone had a sign, he immediately called his mother. When he heard that his mother was safe, he also felt safer with his parents hiding in the cellar, which was prepared by her. Her father said that since she didn't know what was going to happen, her mother shouldn't have convinced her either. While there, he asked the two of them to wait for him to come. Right went. But his mother wanted him to do it. His work is still safe without him coming at this point. The system will show that the entry of the new age has happened. Done all the changes, done well, it's okay. If you get notification. Jeong Siwoo thinks it's his. Mom is safe now, so she will do it, what she needs to do. First, eliminate the monsters that appear on the ground on television. Start to report Sky Castle people. Can't give a clear answer to the situation this time. Only the monster shows a different pattern. From what appears in the dungeon, the government has switched player management mode. Since the incident in San Howard, young Siwoo, watching the news, can only use one word: chaos, to describe everything. I think that's what it takes to be human. There is no reason to believe in justice. When some monsters appear, it turns out to be not enough to protect people at all. After this incident, Young Si-woo's group was still wandering to kill monsters. Finally, the three of them met Young Se-ha again. He was very happy to see him again. His path was so complicated that it took him a while to find him. Then, decided to find a place to talk. Su Ah-rin asked, did he just follow her, that he had something to say when he met her again? Because Marina gave him the gun of God. The brain that was given to him, but he destroyed the brain of God's body. So he felt betrayed by Marina. Marina made Brain angry without him knowing. If he didn't tell her, that he would be very annoyed. The place he took everyone was his brother's company. This Korean building branch is an IT company in Silicon Valley. Since then, his brother's company, all the equipment in his building can be used comfortably. Then, Su Ah-rin next to him said that she is a natural beauty, the best player in the world, and her family is also rich. The world is unfair. Jung Si-woo felt like laughing. He said he has two things in him too, Marina said, that the purpose he came to find her means to do something with him. He wants her to go with him. Arizona, America, where there are traces of the gods that he said belong to both of them, talking about the topic once, before he wanted her to be able to think that the two of them are expanding the war. Then, they swore at the thing that the Earth God had changed strangely at that moment. The center field shift that he could feel in an unusual way, even though he had already felt the brain power of a god. Leia before that was more than this. She said this was probably the most fierce battle of the Arizona case in the US, is the largest scale exception. Fortunately, he was the first to understand the importance of this incident, and took it upon himself and came to find him. Marina, after talking to him, took him to see the portal. He said that while he didn't know that civilization was already developed, until now this was the result obtained after researching the mana stone at her brother's company. The technique was completed. On the other hand, the rest only needed to reproduce it on Earth. He succeeded in making marble, but the mana consumed was too much for him to use. But whether it was bad luck or luck, the current change of Earth caused mana to fill the air. Using nature's mana to activate the current portal, he said can only connect the headquarters building and the Korean branch building. He said that outside of Korea, there would probably be many other candidates for connecting ports. He originally intended to return to Korea to connect Korean ports with headquarters. And this is the country that has one of the strongest candidates, and also the country where the monster first appeared in the world. He told him that right now Korea has the attention of the whole world compared to what he asked for. Warren, why did he turn out to be that small? Shape, he said he had already given him a portal, so he wanted to know about that too. He briefly told some stories to him and told him not to recklessly imitate him. He said that such a small turn is a type of punishment. By the way, he also told him about how he beat a god's brain to strengthen the rifle. It's fine if he said that he wanted to keep giving him a chance. Then he asked her to think that he had stood up for her and left, so it was considered as if he had no debts left. He asked her if he didn't need to pay the fees. He said if he really wanted to give her something, he could help her again whenever he needed help. After escaping from that portal, young Si-woo used his motorbike, take the four of them to their destination. He said it was the first time in his life that he had traveled to the Grand Canyon like this. Young Se-ha said it would take a lot of time. After all, to fly. Thanks to this car, they got there faster than he thought. Young Si-woo laughed. Su Ah-rin Nair. They were so quick, didn't expect him to even give him a nickname, which was Slade Nair. Ina asked for this car. He didn't tell how to make it real. He said that if he could make a corporate portal. His brother can also make cars. This is practicing magic in this world, and combining cutting-edge science with Earth technology, really a different concept. He curiously asks if he is power, and God, you face God's brain and receive power. Other gods right, he said it's impossible, it just entered the process of fighting the monster he had. This car, he looked at the huge energy in front and said, this is terrible. He never felt this kind of energy before. Marina also knows the god who governs monsters that players avoid, most when they quickly pass through it. The area they realize is very important. Bullets are exactly that special Marina skill combined with other skills. This is the idea that she would not have come up with without him. Young Si-woo pretends that he has nothing else to teach him. He can go down the mountain now, Marina says. He has to do it. Follow his skills now. If it's him, he will find a better way, he says. To see if he has time later, don't pay much attention to it. This part of the way is not as easy as they thought when the car stopped immediately. A bunch of monsters Marina saw from afar, and said the kingdom was nearby. Siwoo asked, were they players who were clearly different from the undead? But where is this? Ignore the thought. Never mind, go ahead and try it first to where a group of players are stopping them. I thought that person was the leader of the two bosses in the ponytail. No, these people had the same concept as I said. This is our area. So come out. He repeated what he said. In that area. Since when was there a regulation on Monster Extermination World? Siwoo asked Marina whether yes or no. He asked her to talk. Because he had a bad relationship with that girl, Marina greeted him. Long time no see. Syria Wilson, he told them, that there is a big problem, so why are they doesn't come? Another girl bothers Yongse-ha. Then, where does she go? It is his decision only that he thinks this place is more serious than Salt Lake. He asks Marina if she wants to carry her brother's company on her back, to interfere with their freedom. Siwoo's action hears her and says that even though it is unreasonable, it is quite convincing. The girl named Syria Wilson asks who Siwoo is. Life thinks calmly, even though others are silent, can't sense it. He has visual skills so he can see the undead flocking to this place. If you stay here, everyone will be in danger. He immediately brought out the god brain gun to attack nearby, the place he said would be dangerous if he didn't let his subordinates retreat. Marina reminded him that this is UNESCO. Incorruptible inheritance, he said. He didn't care about this only after researching an effective method. Destruction only then could be created. Siwoo pulled out his gun to attack the monsters that just came. He told Marina that this little shrimp might be set up here, if that's another hard way around for a deal with Syria yet to show up. Wilson also held a gun and attacked them. And they couldn't lose, he said. That Siwoo already consumed mana from the attack just now because they couldn't catch the monster elite, so they would do good deeds as a result. Siwoo heard that, and turned around to ask her who did a good job. Only now did he realize that he didn't use his mana just now. Feeling that he could not function alone, he also began to carry weapons to the Syrian battlefield. Wilson suddenly did not expect in a short time that he was much stronger. Marina thanked him. The couple was called the power of love. The poor man who do not know the real power of love. Siwoo scolded him for talking nonsense. It was better to catch monsters then. He watched his fight thinking it was indeed a loser from the west. The standard is also different from the other members. From the guild. Suhi received divine power and tried to overcome it by looking at those monsters. Siwoo keeps thinking that maybe they continue to consume. But their own power. The leadership of that power is being exercised by divine beings. If that happened then before they turned into real monsters, he had to end them, she told him. To prevent them from coming into contact with Setnik shards. He thought that as expected he was very good. In handling mana quickly realized the danger of Syria team's spirit. Wilson led the team. Also started attacking Syria. Wilson witnessed Siwoo's fight and said that he is no longer human but more like a monster now. Siwoo holds a weapon in his hand and laughs loudly that the captain is dead, so the other monsters will obey more. This time he asks Suarin and Yongse-ha. From his pocket to collect loot, he turns to the group of people Syria Wilson says he had warned them before. The divine power that everyone has today is not compatible with the power of this place, he says. That for good they come back when the place is more stable, he says. They came here because of the imprint of the gods. He cannot just stand and witness the power which is given to the other one. He tells them both Lewis and sets Nick up against each other. Can't have both. Strength at the same time, he said once again to come back. While still able to maintain human form, Syria Wilson says, you are talking nonsense. He has already decided what else he can. Anyone, he doesn't even need anyone for that. He turns to Yongse-ha and Suarin. That everyone will turn into monsters. He feels it, but those people don't listen to him. He doesn't feel upset either, because he already has a part in Su. Rin says, maybe he is bad enough to say he is in exoneration. The four people get in the car and drive to Syria. Wilson surprisingly gives up. After seeing Marina do it, Siwoo also wanted to try it. Marina didn't expect Siwoo to be able to do it so fast that she felt a strange sense of exhaustion. Now that Siwoo could absorb the scattered mana, Setnark's power was also absorbed. Siwoo finally found the place where the fragment was. He started darting away to that place. Shortly thereafter in the distance, Syria Wilson and her underlings were seen. Syria Wilson's subordinate could feel a strong energy from somewhere. Young Siwoo was annoyed because the emperor's people had followed him. Since it was like this, he had no other choice, and made this a joint battle. He thought it was better for him at this time to take care of the situation before they turned into monsters. And if that didn't work, then they would all die. Hearing that, Suo Rin warned Jung Siwoo that he had just said something that the main character should not have said. Jung Siwoo also said that main characters who have a sense of recognition are becoming popular lately. Hearing their conversation made Marina wonder what they were talking about. Jung Siwoo finally arrived at his destination and was impressed to see the huge army of the undead. In the center of the army was a fragment with an ominous aura. Realizing Jung Siwoo's existence, the undead army went berserk because Jung Siwoo broke into their base. They also wanted Jung Siwoo and the others to die. They also intend to present the heads of Jung Siwoo and the others as tribute to Setnarch. A moment later, Syria Wilson and her men finally arrived. One of Syria Wilson's men said that he could hear a strange voice in his ear earlier, but Syria Wilson told the men to ignore it. Because Syria Wilson needed to get the power fragment before Jung Siwoo, Syria Wilson ordered her men to be even faster. Overhearing their conversation, Jung Siwoo thought that if someone heard something in their ear, then that person should stop and start listening, because if they act rashly, they will get hurt. Jung Siwoo became irritated at being disturbed and intended to end this first. He also ordered Marina to take care of small fish, and then ordered Yongsae-ha to protect Marina. After being ordered, they began to rush to do their task. Now all that's left is a knight who will be Jung Siwoo's opponent. Suo Rin was surprised to see the Ghost Knight. She recognized that the Ghost Knight was the knight protecting the Setnarch fragment. Because of that, Suo Rin offered Jung Siwoo to bless his weapon. Jung Siwoo took out his weapon. Suo Rin then started chanting and activated the divine enchant to bless Jung Siwoo's weapon. Noticing Jung Siwoo rushing towards him, Ghost Knight praised Jung Siwoo's courage. He then raised his sword and said, as a sacrifice to Jung Siwoo's delusional courage, he would give him death. The morale of the entire undead army had also increased. But suddenly Jung Siwoo shouted, ordering everyone to kneel down. All the undead warriors who heard that fell to their knees. Hearing the dragon's voice gave them great fear. Marina didn't understand why the undead had stopped moving, but her job was much easier now. He immediately shot them all with his gun. The scourge has great impact, so Jung Siwoo can't use it without being prepared. But to fight the undead, Jung Siwoo arrogantly said that he didn't need to use his strength. Seeing Jung Siwoo's strength, the Ghost Knight intends to kill Jung Siwoo and revive him because his abilities will be of use to his god. For starters, Jung Siwoo throws his weapon at Ghost Knight, and Ghost Knight blocks the attack with his sword. With that attack, Ghost Knight thought that Jung Siwoo's attack was insignificant and asked to be entertained a little. But suddenly, Jung Siwoo hit the Ghost Knight with his motorcycle. When the Ghost Knight was being dragged along, Jung Siwoo said there was something he wanted to tell from the start. In front of the Ghost Knight, Jung Siwoo said that Ghost Knight only talks a lot. Jung Siwoo then jumped off his motorcycle. After Jung Siwoo jumped from his motorbike, the motorbike split the Ghost Knight into two. The Ghost Knight who was split into two died and dropped an item drop. Jung Siwoo then landed and caught the Ghost Knight's sword. Arrogantly, Jung Siwoo also said that this boss fight was too bland. After putting the items he got into his inventory, Jung Siwoo walked over to the Setnarch fragments. The fragment then persuaded Jung Siwoo to come to the comfortable side, a place where people know no suffering and where he can rest forever. Seeing the living corpses roaming in front of him, of course Jung Siwoo didn't believe his nonsense. Seeing the fragment, Jung Siwoo thought it would take a long time to destroy it. Because of that, Jung Siwoo asked Marina to take care of the others while he was trying to destroy the fragment. On the other hand, Syria Wilson's men try to attack Marina, but she is stopped by Yongsae-ha. Marina became angry because the Emperor started a fight with her, but Syria Wilson herself was confused, because she never ordered her men to attack Marina. Then it was seen that the eyes and expressions of Syria Wilson's men looked abnormal. They thought that Marina was Setnarch. Marina also denied and said that he was not Setnarch. Seeing the situation there, Jung Siwoo asked Marina to relax a bit against them and shoot them dead if they turn into monsters. They also ignored Yongsae-ha and lunged towards Marina. Marina was still able to avoid the barrage of attacks by Syria Wilson's men and was about to shoot them back. But his hands were shaking. Since they were still human, Marina couldn't shoot them. So Marina decided to counterattack by kicking. When kicking the men, Marina was caught off guard and was about to be attacked by other men. Yong Se-ha intercepted him and parried his attack. Yong Se-ha then said that he would protect Marina, because that was what he promised Jung Si-woo. Witnessing the incident, Jung Si-woo thought that ever since he entered Setnark's territory, everyone had lost their face. He thought that it might be caused by the conflict between Setnark and Louis. So this issue should be resolved as soon as the Setnark trail is destroyed. But if that didn't work out well, he just had to think about that later. He thought it was the perfect plan. So while Marina and Yong Se-ha took care of the rest, Jung Si-woo decided to start destroying the fragments. But the undead inputs went berserk against Jung Si-woo and chanted Setnark's name. Jung Si-woo was confused as to why the undead always slowed down every time they said the name of their god like that. Then, on second thought, if they all attacked simultaneously, then he wouldn't be able to destroy the fragment. Because of that, he asked Suo Rin to prepare something like a shield. As per Jung Si-woo's request, Suo Rin shines brightly. Slowly, Yong Se-ha changed his clothes and summoned a magic wand. The undead army started running towards Jung Si-woo. Immediately, Suo Rin activated the holy shield and stopped all the undead troops. But because it was near the fragment, Suo Rin said that the shield would not last long. Jung Si-woo also praised Suo Rin for his good work. He praised that this was the first time he saw a useful Suo Rin. Suo Rin was angry because Jung Si-woo used satire as a compliment. Now that Jung Si-woo had left the Emperor's guild members to Marina and Yong Se-ha and the undead to Suo Rin, he could finally focus on destroying the fragments. Jung Si-woo then took out his two weapons. In front of Jung Si-woo, the fragment said that Jung Si-woo was very naive because a lowly existence dared to go against him. Jung Si-woo finally started trying to destroy the fragment and attacked it repeatedly. But the fragment looked like it didn't receive any damage. Jung Si-woo got annoyed because the fragment was quite hard. The fragment also laughed at Jung Si-woo. He said that his abilities were different from a low-level god like Laya. Because of that, he was sure that Jung Si-woo would not even leave a scratch on the fragment. Jung Si-woo thought that the fight was not difficult, because he was fighting the remnants of the god of thunder, and he came prepared. While Jung Si-woo was contemplating what he should do, Marina started to have a hard time because the Emperor's guild members were getting weirder as time went on. Besides that, Suo Rin's holy shield has also started to crack. When Jung Si-woo was annoyed, Setnark began to persuade Jung Si-woo with force. Jung Si-woo has always wanted power, but he believes that power is not something that one person gets from another. But it was something he always earned himself. Jung Si-woo then used super strength, giant front paws, and giant's face. With giant's face, Jung Si-woo's hammer became a giant. With his super strength and his two hammers becoming gigantic, he began to pound his hammer into the fragments. In the fragments, it was finally starting to scratch. Jung Si-woo finally managed to leave a scratch on the fragment. Moreover, the super strength skill had been raised to level 3. Although he was grateful that his skill level had increased at this time, but when the skill's duration ended, an after effect would appear. Thus he planned to destroy the fragment before that happened. Jung Si-woo kept banging his hammer on the fragments. Jung Si-woo was happy because by using the super strength skill, he could use two giant hammers simultaneously. Setnark started to panic as his fragments containing his power slowly disintegrated. Jung Si-woo mocked Setnark by saying that he didn't need strength from him. Setnark also said that Jung Si-woo's strength was indeed extraordinary, but destroying the stone monument would not solve anything. Jung Si-woo didn't understand what Setnark was saying. Setnark then said that if the stone monument is destroyed, its power will double, and it will be released and fill this place. In doing so, his strength increased and stimulated Louis's struggling retainers. Jung Si-woo also started glancing at the Emperor Guild members. They slowly started to turn into monsters. Syria Wilson became upset because she had been tricked by Louis. Setnark then said that no matter how strong Jung Si-woo was, he was still an ordinary human. Therefore, Jung Si-woo will not change anything. Jung Si-woo got very annoyed and told Setnark to be quiet. Jung Si-woo then used his two hammers and finally destroyed the stone monument. The Setnark fragment was released. He laughed at Jung Si-woo, who would be trapped by the obstacles in front of him. Jung Si-woo, who was annoyed, said that even though he didn't appear in person, he had a long tongue. Feeling the power of Setnark, the undead soldiers got even more excited. Suo Rin becomes worried because they won't last long at this rate. Witnessing the state that was under them, the Emperor's guild members who had turned into monsters said to Syria Wilson that they had to kill all the undead because it was Louis's order. Syria Wilson also tried to wake them up and said that Louis was not their master. But they all ignored Syria Wilson and started charging towards the undead soldiers. After landing, they started killing the undead army one by one. Syria Wilson finally realized that Young Siwoo was right. When he finally came to his senses, Syria Wilson's hand also began to mutate. Syria Wilson began to worry that she would turn out to be like her men. Inside her head, Syria Wilson could hear a voice ordering to destroy the opposing force and stop the opposing force from spreading to the earth. Hearing that voice, Syria Wilson felt that she couldn't refuse it. Syria Wilson finally felt remorse for ignoring Young Siwoo's suggestion just because he was Marina's partner. As a result, his guild members turned into monsters, and now he will also turn into a monster.